Hey, everybody. It is your good friend, the safety doc from down here in the North Star recording studio on a new segment called Face Validity Fridays. So, it's something I'm trying out, and I think it makes sense, right? Because we talk a lot about face validity. What is happening in front of you? What are you observing? What are others observing? And then how does that match or mismatch the narratives that we're seeing on the news or soaring stock markets, yet three businesses just closed in my town, family businesses. So these will be short. And yeah, a few touch base things. One is I will be a guest on DLD Dark's show on Tuesday night. So looking forward to that. I'll have more information coming out when he gets that ready, getting a link out. Um, so yeah, we'll be talking about things probably more like on social credit score, and then also the FBI guidance coming out to school districts, what that might look like. So it is actually pretty warm here in southern Wisconsin today. Temperature in the 50s, and on Sunday, my birthday, by the way, um, yes, is going to be 64 and then 65 on Monday. So those are just going to be awesome days because it's about 30 degrees above normal. I remember many birthdays where I was raised in northern Wisconsin. I live in southern Wisconsin now. It would snow on the ground, icy, really cold. So it's nice to have these days. And I have a lot of leaves in my yard, some from my trees and from some from my neighbors. But to be out there like on Monday, I'm thinking 65 degrees and be able to deal with that is just going to be so nice because usually like dealing with leaves, it's super cold outside. So yes, I am. I am. I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but once I get most of the leaves are kind of down right now, so once I get that taken care of, I should be in pretty good shape. Um, so a few things to mention, right? So let's do a face validity check-in here. The first check-in is that 531,000 jobs were added in October per government records, right? 51 or 531,000 new jobs. And we know today the Dow Jones is soaring once again, up over 200 points. I think it was up over 300 points earlier in the day, but will likely finish here in positive territory for not only Friday but for the week at a record high. So yeah, and again, the unemployment numbers show 4.6% unemployment. So all of those things seem really great, right? But if we go over for face validity, what what are we actually seeing? So I have an article from CNS News, and I'm reading it right now. It's indicating just the headline is 1,450,000 people are not in the labor force for the 14th straight month. No job and not looking. So this is what's authentically going on out there, right? Like it it's obvious. I was out, and every store that I went to, from a big box store to the small stores in my town, and anything that's fast food related, right? They've got this right out in front. They got the signs. Hey, we're hiring. We're hiring. I've seen many more commercials on TV. Local manufacturing in my area, and they're doing things. $20 plus an hour, and like meals, like that's kind of a new thing. So some of the factories are, they have like delis and stuff like that. So things are being catered in, and that's but they're still not getting people, right? So they're down. And I had two phone calls this morning with school administrators, and they both said, "Yeah, we are severely understaffed." And one of the schools has a K-12 enrollment of under 2,000, and they had 15 teachers out today. because of like COVID close contact stuff, and they were already running short for the year. So yeah, these now hiring signs are everywhere. It's so that's the face validity thing, right? When we look around and we're told, hey, unemployment is under 5%. Okay. And we are also told, you know, the stock market is reflecting Wall Street, or Wall Street is reflecting Main Street. We just know that's not the case, um, because our main streets are closing. Places are closing. Also, a friend in New York was saying the same thing, and part of that was high rents on these places, but now they're shutting down. And how many of these places haven't paid their rents in the strip malls and things like that? And now you'll start to see them kind of fade away. So yeah, it is kind of this perfect storm brewing. But again, it's face validity. Just as you're listening to the radio, I was listening yesterday, and I think like 1 in 4 commercials had to do with hiring. Right? It was all recruitment stuff for different companies and things like that. Hey, it's McDebiss. Hey, McDebiss, this is welcome. And this is a short segment here that I'm trying out here in the Petri dish, which is the Safety Doc podcast, and trying to do a midweek show that would be about an hour long. And I think Face Validity Fridays has a nice ring to it, and that's sort of we're kind of looking at what the official narratives out of maybe like the media and government are, and then the what is happening before our eyes setting. So as I indicated, that the official numbers for October um, from the government, 531,000 jobs added, unemployment under 5%. But then, reading from CNS News, just that, hey, we're in the 14th straight month where 100 million people are not in the labor force, or, roughly what, 30% of Americans, and of working, age, that would actually be higher. And the fact is they're not looking, so they're not counted in these numbers. But again, Wall Street, the Dow Jones is up substantially today, and it's going to be up substantially for the week. Continues at this all-time high, even as the Fed, which is interesting because the Fed is tapering. Right, they're not they're not printing as much money. There's a lot of money out there, and right today's consideration of a what $2 trillion bill, that would be passed and enacted into law. But yeah, and we'll have some interest hikes that's been announced. Usually, when interest hikes are announced, the stock market takes a dive, and those seem to be baked into the cake right now. So, but yet, interest rates should probably be at least 5% if you're talking savings rates, probably much higher. I remember interest rates when I was growing up, um, on a certificate of deposit that would be close to 10%, depending upon term, 3, 4, 5 years. So those things are going on. So yeah, face validity. So face validity, again, using I observed. So when you're out there, hey, it is SAST too many. So hey, SAST. So it's talking to people. Interest on Celsius is 8.88%. Says SAST. So what SAST is referring to is in the crypto market being able to kind of park your money and to get interest on that money. I don't know it much deeper than that, but yeah. So because interest rates on a bank certificate of deposit, at least in my area, a 5-year bank certificate is about 1.2%. So obviously, if you're fighting inflation, that's a losing battle right there. So yeah, I mean, any considerations on how to, preserve your money and how to, make it grow during this time. Um, because yeah, it's really strange. Again, that we haven't seen. I think those certificate of deposit rates go up, but if you're doing that 8.88%, then good for you. But I mean, seriously, it's so yeah, face validity again. Instead of they said, instead of the news and putting the spin on everything that everything is great. It's just when you're driving down in your town, who has the for sale signs out on businesses, what's been vacant for months, or what's actually going into years as being vacant. I Like I said, I've really tuned into it now. The TV stations in my area running ads, for different, jobs, working, starting out. Hey, we'll train you here at the company that makes, trailers or whatever it is, starting $22 an hour plus like meals. So that's another thing is like they'll show the picture of, hey, like we have a kitchen and we cater stuff in. So like it's all provided for you. Which think about it, like that was something that was more of a big tech type of thing, like 5, 10 years ago. It was real novelty, right? Like if you worked at Google, where your meals would be provided for you and they would, you could bring in your laundry, right? They had a laundry service and like all of these perks. And now how that's trickled down, right, into jobs that wouldn't have had those, 5, 10 years ago. Now they're going that route to do these perks. Um, so, but the thing is, right? Like we still have 100 million people not in the workforce and not applying for these things. In my local walkthrough here at Walmart, and hey, welcome to Juan, um, from the Tenderloin. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, welcome Juan. Um, yeah, so this is something new that I've uh, got cooking here. It's called Face Validity Fridays, and trying to do a 1 hour show and just on what I've been seeing, and then also like let me know what you've been seeing around you as far as empty stores or places closing, places opening, any type of recruitment for people. As I've said, it's about $20 an hour for kind of fast food restaurants where I'm at, which is substantially higher than what it was, and bonuses and things like that. Like phones and I live on the outside. I live about 40 miles from a large metro area. So, that's also, I think, driving some of the things up here because there's so much competition right now for whoever, I guess, wants to wants to work. I guess, and I'm not convinced a lot of people, want to work. So, yeah, it is just crazy, crazy stuff. So, there was the 44th review posted for School of Airs, which is over here somewhere. I have a stack of papers I'm grading. Um, Today. It was posted, the 44th review, so that's awesome. I'm hoping the book um, gets to 50 reviews by early 2022, and before the new book releases, The Velocity of Information. So as I was walking through my Walmart, things were starting to come back in stock, like beef jerky, which was just like cleared out, like every, the the brand name, the generic, everything was gone, and that's pretty much restocked. And things like cat litter, that's all back in stock. And I kind of wonder, like, always on cat litter, because like a 50-pound bag of cat litter. I mean, if you fill, a truck up with a couple crates of cat litter, I mean, just the weight, like what you have to sell that for versus selling other goods. Like I kind of think that would be one of the things they would just say, we're going to not deliver as much, cat litter because it wipes out what we have to do. So, um, So let's see. Mictobus wrote, despite what you're being told by the media, people are not accepting the root beer mandates. Many will be walking off their jobs in the near future. So, so being here in Wisconsin and watching the Aaron Rodgers scenario play out, and with the root beer float, right, and not playing in the upcoming game against the Kansas City Chiefs, but in observing that, right, there are a lot of questions of, um, yeah, what are genuine numbers, right? And that's we the media, the breaking news always ABC News at night. This is happening and whatever, but they don't cover then. My friends in New York who walk to the fire stations and have taken pictures outside saying, this fire station is now closed because of, the mandate in the city. But yet, like, you don't see that on the news, right? So this is face validity of once you start to say, okay, like, here are so many, firehouses that are closed, and the city's saying, oh, no problem, like, this is a very small percentage, but it's like, well, but that doesn't match, right? The face validity, it's not matching. So yeah, and Mictobus, you've got a great point. As people start to walk off jobs, what is going to be the strain on, especially like healthcare? So I live, I live about a quarter mile from our hospital. So it's a hospital, and then it was all built about 10 years ago. It's a hospital and it's a wellness center which has like an indoor track and a pool and stuff like that. And then it's also a long-term care center. So they're all together, these three on this big campus. And I'm like, whoa, like that's a lot of staff that has to be involved in making that work. And as different, root beer floats, timelines get enacted, who's going to be working those places? Because everywhere there are hiring signs out. I mean, it's just inundated. I took a walk the other day, and I usually take about a 7-mile walk in my town here, and just in that 7 miles of assisted living communities and the airport, and then there's a couple lakes and some businesses. I mean, they're everywhere. Like these, it looks like someone's running for election, and they just got the signs planted down, and it's like, hey, like we're paying this and this bonus and call this number, or like even come inside, like just come inside and inquire. And so I'm like, holy smokes, it's wild. So Juan wrote, Doc's 1 hour shows to Bacon's 15-minute philosophy show. It always goes past time. Yeah. And today though, I can't. Like I have some calls that I have scheduled with some of my school administrators. So those will be going on, and I have to get some grading done. So this is a teaching weekend for me. So I've got to get my class stuff kind of prepped too, which I've been doing. But so I have papers and I grade and get ready, have those ready for class so I can go through those. But yeah, I've so when I instruct on Saturdays, it's been warm. Like I've lucked out. This is every class has been 60, 70 degrees, and so that's kind of nice too. I mean, I personally like I've I'm not a fall person, and I'm absolutely not a winter person. I do not like overcast skies. But like it's been sunny now and it is warm. So like that's a big boost for my disposition, right? I It puts me in a better mindset. And Sunday is my birthday. So yeah. Sunday is my birthday. It's a big one. It's a milestone birthday for me. And the weather is looking to be like mid 60s and sunny. So we've got, just some outdoor stuff planned that day. I've also got some firewood that's being delivered. So I heat my house with firewood, and I still have quite a bit of firewood left over from last year because it warmed up earlier in spring, and I should have just kept burning the wood out at night, and I didn't. Um, but I had to rearrange my existing like cords, and that was a little tricky yesterday because that pile wasn't designed to be like taken apart. It's all kind of interlaced, so taking making sure it doesn't fall down and stuff like that. Not it would have been a big deal, just would have been a mess to clean up. Um, but yeah, so I have firewood being delivered on Sunday, which I'll just keep in the garage. I'm not going to deal with that until midweek when the weather sucks. Then I'll go out my garage and move my firewood and stack it downstairs. I have a different location I had to put for it. Um, but yeah, so let's go. What Juan wrote, or Juan said, is this the beginning of the end, or is it just a hiccup? It's the beginning of, yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that. So it's weird. I mean, again, the Dow Jones is at a record high today. I mean, started the day up 300. Now again, Dow Jones isn't Main Street, but like it's just strange, right? All of these help. One, it's you have to believe these businesses are reporting that they're not doing as much business. Like I went online to try to get a pair of shoes, right? So to get another pair of like Hokas to kind of match one, and everyone's like sold out, sold out, sold out, or it's like back order, back order. I was trying to get a couple shirts from Cool, kind of like the cotton ones that I wear, and it's like everything was back ordered. And so I'm like, this has to be hitting the bottom line. And even now, it seems when companies report bad news, the market still goes up. So it's a weird feeling to see that mismatch. But again, it's face validity, right? Like to me, a a stock market at a record high should mean that as I'm going downtown, like the storefronts are saying, like, hey, like open and new stuff. And they're not having every window plastered with hiring or just like this building's out for rent and stuff like that. So um, I think you know, I wrote about it in the Velocity of Information, how back in March 2021 we had you were deemed essential or non-essential, right? Everybody woke up one morning and you were essential or non-essential. Hey, what's up, Atham? Thank you for being in. And yeah, thanks for any posts you're making into the threads. Let me know what you're seeing for what's in stock. What are starting wages for some of the jobs which are being posted around you. Yeah, and like bonuses and things like that that they're giving and trying to recruit. I think the Dairy Queen here is like you get an iPhone if you hire if you sign on. I don't know how long you have to be there to get it, but it's pretty crazy to when I was working, I still have pay stubs. Like I worked part-time like for $3.25 at our local pool, and no sign-on bonus, no nothing, right? You had taxes taken out of that too. So but yeah. So Sass wrote, I won't walk off the job, they'll have to kick me out. And I saw in Iowa, Sass, that people who were fired for not receiving the root beer float are now eligible for unemployment. So that again, I guess we'll see this, where this will go all state by state. And then I was reading an article yesterday that said like life insurance companies are considering, that if you pass away and you haven't enjoyed it, rip your floats, that they won't compensate. Then it'd be something like if you suddenly start doing some very risky behavior, like in Evil Knievel, you're trying to jump over buildings or skydive or stuff like that. I think are exemptions, but I don't know where this stuff will go. And the OSHA, in my state, there was a significant lawsuit filed, not by the state, but by like one of the state workers organization against OSHA today. And so, yeah, it's really, it's very bizarre. So, Nick, this grown up Lincoln Logs. Yes. Juan wrote, in the Bay Area, most big chain corporate stores have empty shelves. What I find interesting is most mom and pop grocery stores never have empty shelves. Yeah. And do you think, Juan, it's also that the big chain stores aren't getting deliveries because there's two things, right? One is it theft? Where because I saw some outrageous numbers. Like some of these stores lose like $20,000 a day in merchandise in like San Francisco and like Baltimore and some of these places. Um, it's big these big stores, and then the other one is that truck drivers won't, unless they're driving. Like if they're independent truck drivers, like I've got my own rig and things like that. Like I won't go and deliver to these places. And I have a friend who's a truck driver who was telling me that there are huge bonuses to deliver to some of these places because basically your goods can be stolen from the truck. I mean, so and the truck can be damaged, and they break into the truck and things like that if it's parked anywhere. So he said, I won't drive to these places unless like they provide their own vehicles and things like that, plus a bonus. So if you're a truck driver, you can also pick and choose because like there's such a demand out there. And again, we see face validity and it's low unemployment, but at the same time, at least in my state, they're talking about maybe 17-year-olds can start to get over the road license training and can start to drive semis. And otherwise, I think it was 20. The age of 20 was before you could do an over the road semi. So yeah. And what's up, Doc? Athens. So yeah, Athens. It would be good weather for caving right now. Um, One, but mom and pop stores usually have their business filled with inventory. I'll take some video clips. Yeah, and so I think, right, people can pick their suppliers, or their suppliers can make sure that they're supplying maybe where they feel that I don't know, like safer to get things out. It's the same thing. I don't. I'll just say I observe the same thing here. Our smaller grocery store, which is not family owned, but kind of like just state owned. It's small corporation here in the state, but they are always stocked. But yet you can go to the big massive chain one, and there's a lot of things empty in there. Um, so actually, so yeah, the smaller one, and I've seen the stores that have still hung around, the ones that haven't closed up. Like we lost the dry cleaning place, we lost the glass place for 55 years, replace your windows and screens and the reason, like they said, they closed down, they couldn't get product and they couldn't get people to work. And then they were also saying like they can't absorb a lot of these changes. So as the housing market was taking off and places were being built, there was this waiting list and contractors and stuff like that. So people were falling behind on getting homes built and they just closed it down. Um, so Juan wrote, it can be possibly it can be possibly worse than we think. So yeah, and I don't think there's there isn't much supply that's being built up anywhere. I know, as far as like vehicle stuff, I've been kind of monitoring, what's out there, and yeah, I know even parts are hard to come by, right now for vehicles. So um, let's see. Sastro, everybody who works are eligible for unemployment if they stop paying you for any reason. Okay. So, yeah. And what is the whole thing with unemployment? And again, earlier when I was talking about from CNS News, and I've got the link and I'll share it right here. 100 million people out of the workforce for the 14th month, and of course, they're not getting counted in to the formula. So it's one of those times, like, if if I know, you guys, you're putting in long hours, and it's one of those things where if you put in all this time, you're working really hard, and you're just seeing inflation, take these bites out of your dollars, or, like, these bills being passed and the money, deflation, hitting it, and the taxes. So it's it's hard to not feel that you're working in vain, in some regard, right? Although if you're really, if you're hardworking, you're still going to stay ahead of it. But um 2-3 years ago, right, we didn't have this crazy level of inflation going on. So, and when so when you were putting in that money, your dollar was able to get you more. um Catherine, one of my workplaces is offering us $1,000 if we refer someone that lasts 6 months. That is, wow. Yeah. So 6 months, pretty long time, right now, for someone to stick with a job. And this level of ghosting too. I talked to some of my school administrators that I currently have in class, or that I've had in class, and they said, it's at the start of the year, coming into this year, you'd hire a teacher, and you'd hire them, but they wouldn't stop looking for a job. They would just look at other districts around, and districts compete against each other, and they'd say, I can go over here for $2,000 more, and so they would just do that. And sometimes there's penalties districts put in, and then if a district would say, "We'll hire you, plus we'll pay the penalty." And then, you're so year or 2, you're there, and then you're doing the same thing. You're just continually looking. It's People are just looking at what is the best deal. And I had a case study, in one of is based on a real scenario. It was, where a neighboring district paid a $50,000 bonus for a tech ed teacher. Is again in this case study, but it's authentic. Um, and it was spaced out over like 5 years. So they get 10,000 a year, but the thought was, it's so hard to find a tech ed teacher. These schools are competing against each other for open enrollment. And some of the students that were coming out of this tech ed program, where they had CAD equipment and heavy emphasis on welding, were graduating at age 18 and had jobs lined up already, and were making 25 to $35 an hour with benefits. Well, you come out, if you have a good apprentice program, and your school is teaching you those skills, you're 18, 19 years old, and you're making that money without college debt, right? You can set yourself up extremely well. So, that's a big selling point. I think that district had 10 or 11 kids that just open enrolled in so they could be part of this program. So this free agent stuff, was pretty non-existent in schools. But now what they say is, like, someone will come in and they'll say, I'm going to be a bus driver or a custodian or something like that, and they'll go through the paperwork, and they don't they never show up, or they're there like a day for in service, and then after that they're gone. So this ghosting stuff is crazy again, and that's what we don't. Nobody is covering this on a government level, right? Of how long people even stay on a job. Like, that would be an interesting data point, right? Like, so new hires on a job, what's the average stay of a new hire? And you could go through different industries, right? Break that down, and 1.3 months, 13.4 months, or what is it? I think that would, tell more of the story. And it's one of these things too, where it's almost like money doesn't matter in some of these cases. Like, I was looking, so, like, again, the fast food restaurants in our area are like, well, first of all, you can get as much food kind of as you want, like, if you work there. But then, once you're paying, they were $15 an hour, not, and then they were 20, and now they're 22. And, like, even if they got to be like $30 an hour, like, I just don't think there would be many more people applying. And so at what point do you have to like I, I mean, does it become prohibitive to say like to even get someone halfway reliable, we have to offer like $35 an hour? But I don't know. I It's pretty crazy. Atham wrote, problem is employers are cheaping out with raises, and one can easily go and get another job that pays more and raise instantly that way. Yeah, Atham, you're right. And I see it. Yeah, and I see it in the school setting too, in the K-12 setting. Is districts will it's free agency with every single teacher, administrator, and all of that. Like they will just play one against the other. And actually, they do that. They'll get a job, and so that's kind of their fallback position. But again, and then they'll go to the other district and say, "Here's what I'm making here." And if you want me, and they have a shortage, right? So if you want me, you're going to have to pay this, and it's just crazy. That leverage. But and then they'll come in and they'll start piecemealing. Like, I want this. I want some additional days off. And now there's these packages of, mental health days, or like, personal recreation days. I mean, all this creative stuff that um, I've often wondered, like, if I were to re-enter that part of the workforce, what I could actually demand and what would be given to me, right? As far as not only just like salary, but just like this range of benefits, like, coming in and say, I want additional time off, or I want a payment to a 403b, right? Like a retirement thing. So I'll come in, but at the end of the year, you have to make you have to make a $2,000 payment. And I mean, I think it's individual negotiating at this point. So, um, and Atham wrote, I had this happen in my workplace a few times already. Of yeah, people coming in and getting a raise somewhere else. It just destroys like continuity and legacy knowledge. Um, so that's why too, like I am really glad we had the house, majorly remodeled on the inside and then the outside about 10 years ago. And at that time, it was after the housing crash. So like if you were a carpenter and you were a general contractor, like there wasn't much work out there, right around 2010. So we were able to get great deals on materials, plus like, the the workers were sticking with their jobs. And so, when the the carpenters and the team came in, like they had worked together for a while. There wasn't this job hopping and stuff because things were really uncertain back then. And now, I mean, you could get somebody to come in and they have no vesting. They, how if your stuff is straight or if it's aligned or not. I mean, it's just the quality is. I had a neighbor who had new windows installed, really high end, like windows, and then just like issues with installation because it was all rushed. It was done in a day, and so now it's just like having to go in and take some out and getting like some people to come in and try to fix this. And but yeah, so let's look over. Atham wrote, my boss left. Then my boss is left scratching his head, wondering what's going on. Yeah. We are in this like the face validity part, and that's where we go through and we see the stores, we see the signs. I see it when I'm out walking, like all these signs of, hey, $22 starting, like come inside, like knock on the door or call this number. And it's like, you get the job, right? Unless you didn't pass a drug test or you had some crazy criminal, record stuff going on, you get the job. So Anthem put, he realized what was going on finally, gave me a substantial raise. They're afraid of losing me right now. Yeah, you put in a lot of hours, buddy. So you gotta get paid what you're worth. Um, I would not work in a fast food restaurant even if they paid $30 an hour. So yeah. And so I think that's out there too. It's like, um, even if it's imagine, I mean, 3 years ago, fast food, $7, $8 an hour, right? And now like $30 an hour and, people not taking these jobs, not working these jobs. Um, even like the high school kids in our area, and we live like so in my area, it's if you're high school, like this is y- y- you can easily land a job $25 to 35 because we are close to a major recreation hub, which is 20 minutes away, which already was paying well above and would import um, workers via visa, for like the summer and tourism season and stuff like that. So, which they weren't able to do in the past year because of COVID restrictions and things like that. But so, like, you can, 15, 16 years old and be hauling down $30 an hour plus more. And, say I want this, plus I want a new iPhone and you know, and they'll give it to you and gift cards for signing on and staying for so long. And so yeah, and it's like what's it going to look like when they kind of get into the workforce in a few years? Is that going to be the same? Is this just the shift? Is this the disruption where whatever they get into and then if we get into these baseline salaries that are going to be higher, then it also means inflation, like the cost of things would be kind of going up. And um, I don't know. I don't know. How I feel right now is I feel like I was drastically underpaid in my high school and college part-time jobs. I know that was quite a while ago, um, but yeah, like I said, I have check stubs from like $3.25 working at the pool. And you had to be on time, and there was a responsibility with that. So yeah, Juan wrote, "Don't forget the fuel prices. They also discourages people from workforce. San Francisco's $5 a gallon." Terrific point. Today we were just under $4 a gallon here in Wisconsin, and yeah, thankfully, like I don't drive much. I mean, I have to when I drive to the university, it's a hike, but I get reimbursed for mileage. Um, but if I was doing that on a regular, basis for a job that I wasn't reimbursed, it would just be killer, right? I mean, to have to pay. I mean, because when I was actually doing most of my driving, gas was like $2 or less a gallon, and I was probably getting like 35 miles on my vehicle, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But now, right, $5. Um, and yeah, how does that translate out? And you're right. If you are working outside of the area, if it's almost like people would have to employers would say, "Hey, come here and if you're driving so much, we'll give you gas card reimbursements." Because I don't know how that works legally, like to try to reimburse people to driving to you. There's something with that if it's like a high needs area and it has to be like beyond 50 miles or something. But yeah, I mean, they'd have to take it into consideration, right? Of saying, yeah, we're going to do these fuel card bonuses or something like that. Um, yeah, I remember. I mean, what gas a year ago? It was, I think it was like $2 here. I remember in March and April of 2020, 77 cents gas, and at the uh, at the gas station next to us, the city. I think ours was still like 80 cents, but because yeah, everybody had stopped traveling and it just took a dive. But yeah, it is. What does that mean? So again, this is great face validity, right? So how should you? So as we kind of get in toward the last quarter of this, so what does it mean for what is I guess the preparedness standpoint? So as I look at this, I think preparedness um, is that I think as fuel prices go up, we're going to have fewer people applying for positions that aren't close to them. So people who would have driven, 20, 30 miles for a job probably aren't going to do that. Those prices are going to get, passed along into everything that we pay for. Our water bill went up. We were notified, like, there's an infrastructure, changes that we have to make, but I mean, it won't go down. So, thankfully we heat with wood, but, we still have natural gas for hot water and, all of that. So, that will be going up. So I think I calculated out about like I figure we'll have like a $900 increase in our house, like that for utilities over the upcoming year. Yeah, it's pretty close to that. Where I mean, and granted, probably higher than that. Um, and like, yeah, my vehicle insurance, went up, and face validity too. I saw that some of the cities like Philadelphia, what said they're not gonna, if you run a red light, they're not going to pull you over and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just pretty crazy. So I am personally continuing to um, keep the second pantry going, which we started during the time of COVID. So I have that kind of in a dry storage area here in the basement, and it's usually soup, um, raisins or craisins, things that'll stay. Peanuts, lightly salted peanuts, because protein, portable, and the good cholesterol coming out of peanuts. So I've been stocking up on those. And those are still pretty cheap, right? Yeah, about $2 a container. So, those will stay for quite a while. But I know I stocked up on cereal because Kellogg's went on strike, right? So then things kind of thinned out, and was making sure I had my supplies there. So just really kind of keying up in the as I go through like crackers are usually sold out at our grocery store and stuff like that, like the fish crackers and things like that, things like my kids like. So if we can, those are in stock, we will buy extra and get those. Um but yeah, I'm so that's what I'm observing. I had a hard time. I couldn't find stable, STABIL, to put in my gas for the gas that I store. Usually it's just like for my lawnmower and snowblower and stuff like that. But there was nothing. Like I went to a couple places, like it was all gone. And so I'm like, well, that sucks. So, um, because I mean, when it's like winter here, and the gas kind of gets stale or gummy, and you don't want to be running it through anything that has a carburetor like a snowblower. So I tend to buy True Fuel, which is I get it at Home Depot, and that used to be less too. And it comes in it's synthetic fuel, so it has a higher octane rating. But I only use it like with my snowblower, because my snowblower has a really finicky carb on it. And actually, like, I've used it the last 3 4 years as True Fuel, um, and that's I haven't had any problems. Carb is like super clean after that. But yeah, so making sure that I have that in stock. And yeah, it's just that observing what's there. And batteries have gone up. Holy smokes. I don't know if you've seen it, but for Halloween, we have a lot of these little strobe light type things that we got from Walmart a couple of years ago. And um, I was setting that stuff up, and I went to buy AA batteries, and yes, I mean, significant jump. And like the bigger pack, there's like $11, like for the energizers. Um, and so I'm like, wow, this is big. They're in stock, right? But batteries were up significantly. So I'm like, well, so there's another increase. So yeah, yeah. I've also seen in our neighborhood, and this is new, when on recycling days, so our garbage is one every Monday the garbage truck comes through, put the garbage container out, and then every other week you put the recycling container out too. And now they've kind of just taken the same truck and they put like the garbage and recycling, they just dump it in the same truck. So they're not recycling it because they're saying, there isn't a market for this stuff. Like we can't, they usually like would sell it to other countries, but they can't, there aren't ships and containers to sell like the recycled plastics. They're like, it's just going into the landfill. Cause I'm like, hey, this the truck, like you pick both these up. So that's something else like you can start to see because in my county, like just out of town, it's where you take things to be recycled, like old TVs and stuff like that. And that's really slowed down for them because people just aren't getting that stuff. So one, it put what's the amount of supplies one should have per family member. So let me think about that a little more. So when we get to the next face validity um, Friday, that we can piece that together a little bit more. But yeah, one of the things, and this was something I didn't do before, was to have that second pantry area, and it is divided. There are sections on there that's stuff that I would eat, but then there's stuff that um, for my kids and kind of other things that we would use in the family kind of get split up in that area. So, but yeah, so I believe we have, easily, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I think we're really reactive, but not reactive. We're really observant right now. So between like the different grocery stores and stuff like that, Aldi's and whatever, if we start to see things thin out, like I'll just say, hey, like I'm gonna go and pick these things up. And that was one thing too. We always did family shopping. So my wife and my daughters would go out every Friday night, and we would shop as a family. And now we don't do that. Ever since like the virus, right? We split, and so she would do some shopping at one time, and because things weren't in stores, like, and then I would go like a different time to see like if they got a delivery, and we really don't bring the kids with us anymore, but that continued. Like we do separate shopping, we stagger it. So to try to get to the places when, maybe there's been a delivery. Um, so, and we double check, the list, but that's something I don't think I'll ever stop doing. And, that we'll stagger this. But if we see that, things are starting to get short supply, um, especially like pastas and things like that, I'll be like, hey, what do we need? And let's go out and let's grab this stuff, and we'll load up on it. Um, so yeah, I've been keeping a um, at least 2 to 3 weeks, and we also did, we're stocked on like the Clorox wipes stuff. Although like, I don't think we would really be using a lot of that stuff. I mean, all this, but we did maintain a pretty good supply of that, and like Lysol spray and things like that. Like I don't think those are the big things anymore. I really don't, or the hand sanitizers. I think now it's really food, batteries. C batteries were extremely hard to find in my community, and God, we have a Rayovac plant here, for God's sakes. Um, but Rayovac batteries. But so yeah, C's were hard, and D's are kind of hit and miss too. So I have probably like 4 packs of D batteries. And one thing too is like on my LED like mag lights, I always unscrew the cap in the back now, so they're not accidentally like draining down, even if you have it off. That it has the connection. Because I had that happen a couple times. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I'm figuring it just had to be like it's just draining over time. So I always take the back off, so they're as they sit. Um, But yeah, and then, another thing too is I have the Jackery, battery chargers that you can plug your phone in and your USB thing, and I can on one of our Fridays here, I have 3 of them, and, 2 of them I always keep charged, like, so every month or 2, because if power goes out, right, or if there's some situation where we end up at the hospital, somebody is sick or hurt, and, we need energy, that's something that we need to be able to recharge phones or something like that, and that's not available to us at a hospital, and who knows, like, how long you'd have to wait or be, like, referred, at a hospital. But yeah, they're shutting down a big, coal plant, a big energy plant outside of our town, and they just spent billions updating it in the last 3, 4 years, billions. And, now that's being phased out in 2, 3 years for green energy. Well, it's Wisconsin, green energy. If you go 10 miles out of town, there's like these big windmills everywhere. Which okay, I get that, I guess, but solar, it's probably not happening here. So like, how are you going to replace all of this? And so, at least that stuff. And as Juan wrote, considering buying a gas generator, yeah, California, don't they? Haven't they banned that? Right? Haven't they banned um, gas generators? Like you won't be able to buy them now. I think you can service them, or you can buy them somewhere else and bring them in. Um, but I've been thinking about that too, and I've been monitoring, maybe getting like a small Honda generator. And I do have a window right above where my circuit panel is in that goes downstairs. So it would be easy to put it outside and to run the cord down, and then be able to at least keep my fridge going, my freezer, and power up a few other things. And I could power my I have a direct vent water heater, so I could also make sure that I had my hot water heater, keep that powered up. So yeah, that's a good thing. I've been seriously thinking about it, and I was going to block off that window at one point, and now I'm like, no, like I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that window. And if I do have a generator, yeah, I could put it out in back of my house, and I wouldn't have to worry about, fumes coming down in that, because I'd have plenty of room to space it down. Um, so, and Mictobus is saying, hey, switched all of my lights to 1865 CR 123 years back, last much longer. The former are rechargeable. So I think you're talking about like your mag lights and stuff like that to switch them over from into the LED thing. So yeah, actually I sold some mag lights. Some of my I should have, I guess I could have converted them, but I just bought new like LED mag lights, which have been great. um, and yeah, I mean the amount of lights that they throw off is just crazy. But yeah, and they've held up. I've dropped those a couple times. Um, and mixed biscuits, but good idea. One, everyone is talking about stocking up on egg noodles, but we also need to be considering how to handle things if you lose power for a few weeks this winter. Definite possibility. And a benefit of being in Wisconsin is if we lose power, and we have a screened-in porch, we could take things out of the freezer and just get them usually out on the porch, right? And get them in the coolers, and so we would probably be okay, with anything that was frozen, because we could likely keep it frozen, keep it cool enough, or keep it where we could still eat it. But yeah, what do you do if you lose power? So yeah, although running a generator depends on fuel being accessible, affordable, and that's where I go as you put Mictobus. So again, I know this is it's expensive. True Fuel, which I pick up at Home Depot, and I think I get a 6 pack. Well, it was like $30, so it's 6 cans. There, I don't know. It's a little more than a quart. Like right, it's totally like if you were to True Fuel fill up your car, I mean, it costs you like $1,000. I mean, you totally would never do that. But what True Fuel does is it's synthetic fuel, and if you have anything that's carb operated, especially that you're not using a lot, like for me, a snowblower, my snowblower. you're not having to mess around with any of that stuff. Like the carb getting gummed up because of gas, even if you're putting in the recreational gas from your fuel station. Um, so I keep I keep 6 cans of True Fuel on in my garage, and I think I'm going to order another 6. Um, and you know, but that's more emergency too. I mean, or if you had to go somewhere, in your car, like, right, you could probably put 4 or 5 cans. Well, at least, I mean, it would probably get me 30, 40 miles down the road, True Fuel, if there was a genuine emergency. um, and the gas stations were shut down. um, but it's a good point, I mean, that you brought up. And hi, Cameron. um, and I heat my house with wood, so it's an advantage. And even though the blower is electric operated, I could do that off of a generator. But I do have where it's a stone wall, so the even if I didn't have the blower on, as long as I don't overheat the unit, the wall will heat up, right, and the wall will radiate and keep that side of the house warm. And I have good insulation. When I had the house worked on, new siding and stuff, we had it wrapped with the Tyvek wrap. And so, like, that's that's been pretty we're in pretty good shape with that. And with wood, we'd be able to to get through at least for a while. So it's a big plus, like having that radiant heat. And it's a also, the back of it then is in my garage. So the back is cinder block, but it heats up. So benefit in winter, because of heating the house with wood, is the garage never gets below freezing, even if it's like -20 outside. Um, so in my cars, we come in and your car's all snow covered and stuff like that, slush covered, and you park in the garage. Um, the After a short amount of time, the everything melts off and goes down the drain. So that's just kind of a benefit. Um, All Pro Lemonton wrote, "I want a septic tank as well and wood burning stove." So yeah, we don't have a septic tank. So yeah, for septic went out in, in town and stuff like that, I don't know. We live on a hill, so gravity wise would be okay with septic. And actually, we have a water tower not too far from us. So like water pressure and septic, we'd be okay for a while. And then we have a woods in back of us, so I guess we have makeshift septic. That could definitely be in place. But yeah, one of the things I need to think about too is as we kind of get toward the end here, and this Friday Face Validity is water. Like I keep when we there was this thing like this Midwest derecho, right, that hit Iowa, and these high winds, like the hurricane winds a couple of years ago. And we were under a watch for that in Wisconsin back in summer. And so I went out and I just, I picked up a couple cases of water. And I I don't know how my water supply probably isn't as much as it should be, and I need to revisit that. And the house I grew up in had a sump pump, right? So as water would seep in around the foundation, and that was water you could probably drink, right? Like, well, you probably, if you boil it, but for the most part, like, or you would have water available to you for bathing or things like that. But I don't have that here. Um, I don't have I have a couple lakes close by, but I don't. I need to get a little bit more on the water supply. So I'm also big into the tuna packets and big into sardines. So I love sardines, and sardines last a super long time. So I just kind of watch what is in stock at Walmart, and I do like the King Oscar. It's just, to me, it's a better sardine. So Juan said, going to buy some True Fuel later on. Thanks, Doc. So yeah, again, and the thing with True Fuel is anything you have that's carb operated, and I just, I've been able to look at carbs in my snowblower, which I had for 20 years, and I always had issues like carbs always get gummed up. And then somebody just said, well, use True Fuel because, the regular gas that you get from the gas station, even if it's, whatever grade for ATVs and lawnmowers and stuff like that, for snow blowers, because it's cooler, it kind of coagulates and messes up the carbs. I'm like, yeah. So True Fuel really made a difference. In my lawnmower, I never run it. I just run the regular ATV type gas I can get at the gas station because the mower burns hotter, right? And you're using it longer. And so never had a problem with that. But yeah, I think if I was to do a generator, I wouldn't. At least I would maybe mix it, right? And especially then when I burned it out, ran it dry, I would run True Fuel at the very end to have it cycle through. But yeah, a generator is on my mind, especially like I said, a small Honda or something like that. Like we've got the generator, the small engines place in town, and I know he has some back in stock. And just to rotate, it would be easy enough for me to keep my refrigerator, water heater, and freezer going, and even to fire up, charge up the laptops and things like that. Those are all options. So Cameron, we have John Steele in the house. I'm on early today. Yeah. So John, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a regular show either Sunday or Monday nights. And so I've had pretty regular schedule here the last like 4 weeks. And I want to do a morning show or a midday show. And I'm just trying this out today. It's kind of like a Face Validity. I like Face Validity Friday as kind of the midday show. And that's the one where it's just like, hey, what are you seeing as far as like, posting of jobs or what's in stores and what's out of stock or what's in stock or what's happening by you or, and then just kind of taking it against official narratives. So yeah. And, Mictobus wrote, Sawyer, Grail, etc. Life straw makes a family-sized one. Yeah, I need to look into some life straws. I talked to Robert Travis, who I interviewed in my book, the Crab Boater, and he has life straws on his rescue boats that he makes and sells, the rooftop life raft. So, yeah, I need to bring in some of those things. And in a pinch, you can melt snow or pull from your water heater. Yeah, could do that. And and we do have 4 months of the year where our snow, like we just have a lot of snow here. Sastro, go to a motorcycle or power sports shop. They have a VP4 cycle fuel in 5 gallons, so you can get cheaper in True Fuel. Yeah, that's a good point. I need to do that. I think I would, if I got a generator, I would definitely do that. The winters are kind of a hit and miss. I don't know how long that stuff stays. Usually True Fuel will stay 2 to 3 years, they'll say. Some winters I'll go through like 6 cans of True Fuel if we get a lot of snow. And other years, like I might go through 2. I mean, I might only run the snowblower 4 times. I mean, so, but yeah, I mean, it's a good investment and you're right. I mean, and if it gets to a point where you've had it a couple of years, it's just easy just to burn it through the lawnmower, cycle it out and get new stuff. But it's one of those things like if you don't have it, how are you going to get it? That stuff is quickly going to be out of stock. And I noticed that when in March and April of 2020, like True Fuel and similar like synthetic fuels were gone. So Sastro, if you have a marina near you, that's all ethanol free. Yeah. And I don't, but John wrote, I have the Ketadine pocket water filter. It is really good. So good. I need to look into that. And John, like down below, if you want even to post like in the comments area, like a link to it or the name to it, because that's actually a weakness in my just preparedness. I don't have outside of, a couple cases of water. I don't have a good system here for purifying water. Sastro, prices are up. Got 5 5 gallons 2 months ago for $95 out the door. So yeah, it is. Yeah, this it's crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah. So as we kind of get into to what the wrap up. So if you can subscribe to the channel, I see everybody here. You're all subscribed, right? Um, Let people know it's so the channel's up to 487 subscribers, and that's up 40 over the last month. This is all time high. Like it's kind of like the stock market. So yeah, I'm looking, 500 is kind of this mental milestone, and then of course, if I can get to 1,000, 1,000 is big with the book because my publisher, one of the things that is so I will be doing a publishing road trip in spring, probably April, May, which will bring me down to Salt Lake City, New Mexico, Texas. And one of the things is, and in Pictobus, I need to not need, I want to get out to Pennsylvania. I will get out to Pennsylvania, and I can probably work that into an author event too. I've never been to Gettysburg, right? So I want to see that, and also want to meet up a number of friends in the Pennsylvania area. Um, so I'm going to be doing some road trip stuff with the book. But as my publisher was saying with marketing, now kind of the threshold on if someone is bringing like will be a guest on my show or like willing to invest in marketing the book, it's like, well, what is the social media following of the author? Now I've got a lot of stuff out there which really works in my advantage. I've published before, the books have sold well, like School of Airs is in hundreds of libraries. It's got 44 reviews, which is pretty good for a niche market book, and they're all like 5-star reviews, which is great. I've been on PBS, but I don't have a big social media base, and part of that is my own doing. Like I don't have Facebook and Instagram, and so I have like LinkedIn, which is I think LinkedIn is pretty ridiculous. Um, but I kept LinkedIn as kind of a professional with my university work. But I, there's nothing that's happening out of LinkedIn that is really benefiting me. But so it's Twitter, and then it's YouTube, and my website, Safety PhD, which I post a blog post with every show that I do. Like these shows won't have a blog post, but like the official safety docs, I have 157, and that's getting a lot of traction. Like the website, Loyola University Law Department was going through some of the stuff I put on my website, an interpretation of some legal things, and they contacted me and said, "Hey, like we really like this one, you know, this post that you wrote, and we can't find anything out there kind of like it. Would you be willing to like be interviewed and give your ideas on this?" And we're writing like a legal note, and I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, sure." And then like, so when this legal note comes out, like, they'll reference me. And but anyway, if I have 1,000 YouTube subscribers, that means my publisher does a different tier of marketing for me. It means when I come on to shows, or I have people on shows, and it seems to be the thing. Like people say, "I'll talk to you," like but I'm not going to be on your show unless there's 1,000 subscribers. And these are people who themselves have like 500,000 subscribers, and it becomes a time thing, right? For them, how much return. And I get it. Like you have to make some of those decisions. Although it's, this at the same time, Larry Lawton has 1.33 million YouTube subscribers plus like all his other channels. And Larry was on my show and would gladly come back and continues to help. But I don't want to say like I feel like I know people have to make these decisions based upon their time, especially like if you're a full time um, media influencer, right? That maybe it's not worth it to come on the show for that. So, but yeah, as All Pro Lemonton wrote, yeah, once you hit 1K, the algorithm works for you. It took DT 7 years to hit 1,000. So yeah, in a few years he was almost at two. You're right, and that's kind of everybody I've talked to. yeah, once you get to 1, that's a big step, and then it starts to go pretty fast after that. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, so I was writing in the book, I think Morgan Rogue, um, she had like 26,000 followers. And that was like when I got the book in 2 months ago to the publisher. Now she's like at 32,000. So when I get the next proof of the book, I have to go through all of the people that I had, like Larry Lawton and Juan Brown and Morgan, and how many followers I had. And I'll have to update it because they've all increased just over the last few months. So, but yeah, it is, yeah. Um, Sastro, Doc has to shame. I mean, trick. I mean, bet Aaron Clary a free dinner if you can't get Doc 2000. So, so I am appreciative because Aaron, many times when I listen to his show, he will say, "Hey, get on over to Doc and subscribe." And when he says that, there'll be a bump. There'll be some people that'll come over. And yesterday he was. I popped into his channel, and there were like 300 and some people listening. And I've got a couple other people who've said, like, we're going to work hard to mention and to get you over to 1,000. So really for me, like, that 1,000 needs to happen by like March or April. So the book comes out in April and before that. And again, it's a big metric with the marketing of the book. And as I go and working with the publisher of, okay, like, here's going to be like the circuit you're going to do, like the libraries are going to go to, or the independent author places, or if it's a university, or like, as all this gets set up, um it just seems to be, now it's kind of like that 1,000. And plus just having more shows out there and more blog posts, because if people do the Google search, right, that comes up. Um, and there is an Associated Press release. There are 3 actually that will come out with the book. So the AP releases are big. So there's like when that comes out through the publisher, like there's when the AP releases release or come out, then that's when I get phone calls from TV, radio, and you know NPR and stuff like that to come on. And so it's much more aggressive approach for this book. And I think the reason is, one, it's a general audience. The Velocity of Information is not a school safety book, right? So it's a general audience, and no one is kind of doing this of like, why, chaos, like right now, and long period of time of chaos. Um, and for my publisher, like, they know me, right? I'm a proven commodity because I've already published with them, so I have a track record. And so they're going to make another commitment because I had strong sales, mostly like library, but also through um, Amazon and things like Barnes and Noble and small bookstores and places like that. I can see where the book is for the most part, like through my interface with the publisher, if it's been ordered um, through their network and stuff like that. And it's interesting because it's really dense in Texas. Like, I can go through and like you know it's all over the place in Texas, like the universities and the communities. And I don't know why, because my publisher said, "Have you been doing any special marketing in Texas or like any?" And I said, "No, um, I don't know." Here was one thing. There was a college student, and she was completing her doctoral program, and she cited my book in some of her work. And so, like, it it got, I think the university probably bought it then and stuff like that. And I don't, maybe that kicked it off, but there isn't any reason why Texas is just like, all, if every state had like what Texas has done with my book, I mean, it would be unbelievable. And California, like Burbank Library, just added it 2 weeks ago, I think. And so it's fun behind the scenes because I can kind of see internationally where it gets added. And that's only a fraction. Like, there's a lot of places, right, that don't show up on that database that I get to see. But at least it's a good feel that the book is still getting a lot of momentum. And but as we build up to this is this is the tour. This is the going out and the author events, the author meet and greets, and the things that go with that. such as, some free books along with the book signings and the venues of, so if it's held at a bookstore that there's, raffle for like, not only books, but like 3 gift cards for the store, stuff like that. So, um, but and getting to meet like people who are genuinely interested in my work and in this work, right? Um, so that's a cool thing because people would they're not going to show up if they're not interested in your work. So when I did author events for School of Airs, that was always fun to go to like Barnes and Noble and stuff because when people come in the door, they're already interested, right? You don't really have to sell them on, the school safety stuff. And um, so yeah, and so I'm going to be stopping. It's kind of piecing together right now where the bigger sites are going to be, and then it's just going to be, yeah, this road trip thing. I'll have to bring like a couple bottles of Febreze. Unless, you can probably still get that at the stores, and because I Febreze my sport coats, so I don't have any place to dry clean them anymore around here. I have to drive an hour to get to a dry cleaning place, so um, my sport coats have to be pressed into duty. Which reminds me, I have to Febreze one because I'm teaching tomorrow in person. So um, that works. Like I'm sure there's a point where that won't work anymore. But yeah, it tends to, especially wool sport coat gets a little warm and stuff like that. But if I've Febrezed, I should do like just a show on that, like how I Febrezed just like crazy my sport coats. Um, so this is the video where Cappy got DT up to 1,000. So Saston, I remember that one because Cappy needed a ride to the airport, right? And there was something related to that, or maybe there wasn't, but there was some bet that the two had. I'll have to go back and watch that one. So read up on guerrilla marketing campaigns. Yeah, I so that's I have somebody who is owns a business and has to aggressively market it. He's a friend of mine in California, and he's also an author. And he's really into like the new book coming out. Like he's kind of wanting to mentor like the release on that because he's studied marketing for so long, and it's been very successful with his business, and he employs about 20 people, and so he was saying like don't do this and like or do this, and so some of it comes into like one of the things that he said right off the bat is like get as many books as you can and send them out to the influencers, right? um, that call them ahead of time, and I know certain people that will promote the book. I mean, Larry Lawton, 1.3 million YouTube followers, will promote it on air, right? And won't, I mean, he'll just do that because he's in the book, and we've talked. And Juan Brown. And so, I mean, get the books out to everyone. And then also, I've got some other people that I've called ahead to, and I've said, I'm sending you the book, or like, I've got a hold of their people, and, I'm sending the book. There's no obligation, right, to publicly acknowledge that you got the book or anything like that. I just want you to have it. But hopefully, if they have it in their network, they're talk about it, or either on their shows they would bring it up. But Juan wrote, Febreze is the answer to a lot of problems. Yeah, Febreze is for a sport. I've never seen anybody kind of do that, and it works well. So I've learned to, like, you turn a sport coat inside out and how to saturate it, and it doesn't. It's never marked. It's never like ruined a sport coat. And by the way, like when I buy sport coats, you probably know this about that, but I buy them off of eBay, Oscar de la Renta, 44 regular. So like they're usually always consistent unless somebody's altered them, and then, but it's for the gamble of the 20, $30 on a sport coat, which probably was, 500 new. If I buy 3, 2 out of the 3 will be in good shape and fit. And so it's the sport coat that I wore on PBS in 2013 and 2019. That's the same sport coat that I got for $30 off of eBay. There's a 3 button, right? So, like, no one really wears a 3 button, and if you wear a 3 button, you to make it look formal, like, you have to button all 3, but it's kind of a neat look, right? So then when you people look, it's, like, really formal, like this 3 button. It's just because, yeah, they don't make those anymore. It's kind of an old style. So you kind of have this eclectic feel, but yeah, I'm not gonna pack a whole bunch of sport coats when I'm running around, on the book thing, especially when I'm in the Southern US, it's gonna be warm. So I need to figure out, like a linen sport coat I can buy or something, something like that. I don't, you always want to look pretty good, during these in-person events. And I'm having like a new stamp made too, by the way, for the new book, a smaller one, because the current stamp, and some of you have received, School of Airs. It's cool. It's just it's too big to practically bring around, and then also like in the moment, if people are there and they want you to sign the book, to get the stamp like ready and calibrate it where it should go on the page and stuff, and not like have it crooked, or like something turn out wrong and ruin ruin your book. Sorry, I just stamped it as a big blur. I need to come up with something small. And I've had a couple ideas of ways to do that, because people, what they want is they want it stamped, and of course, like that you sign it and date it in front of them and stuff like that. So I've got a couple things kind of in the works for that. And yeah, I'll probably do like some bookmarks and just some ancillary, things that'll go with it. I've thought about some merch too with the velocity of information, because it does lend itself to that, and it also lends itself really well to like a course. So I'm going to talk to the university where I instruct, and even like breaking into some keynotes. And like, it's not Aaron Clare's minimalism course, it's not Nick August's crypto course, but I think it's as I said to my dad when I got done with the book, I said the book is really like going to lay the golden egg for 3-4 years, because it will become a course, and it will become a keynote presentation, and it will become these other things, which kind of School of Airs did to some extent. But I said there's so much more that has to come into this. Double-breasted peacoat. I do have one Atham. I have a double-breasted peacoat, authentic navy peacoat, which I've had for 25 years, and it still is in like new condition, even though like I wear it nonstop. And I was wearing it when I was in the accident that destroyed my car, and where I was all like bloodied up and cracked ribs and stuff. And the peacoat was just fine, although it was covered in glass. Like, I got up and did the shimmy, and the glass came off. I don't know if I really shimmied that much. I was like just kind of like frozen and contorted, but the glass just came off, and I'm looking, there wasn't a mark on it. And so yeah, it was like wearing the second skin there of when I was in that accident. That was pretty remarkable. Um, John wrote, if you learn how to use OBS, you can really spice up your shows. Yeah. Um, so, and you're right. And a couple of people have mentioned that to me. And I know like Rob from Rob Says, like Rob has mentioned that, and he really does a phenomenal job with OBS in his shows. So yeah, like what you see behind you, right, is just what is behind me. And John, I can do this though, right here. So look at this. So I bet you didn't know like that I could do that. Now, or I could also do this. I could make my head become a pumpkin. So, and I can also do this. So, so I've got a couple features going here, but yeah. So, but no, that is something. If I did have the ability to do OBS, well, I mean, right? If I learned that, and it would be pretty easy to green screen and back me. I've got room down here, to physically do that. So it wouldn't. That's usually a little bit better than the digital green screen, like to have it back you. Um, I could probably actually do some keynoting. I did a keynote from down here, with a school district in California, but this is kind of like what they saw in the back. Like, so I think they were kind of like, you know, it looked too much like a Zoom, like you're doing it from home, and so that's a step up. And the mic actually still holds up pretty well. Like the audio is pretty good, and people will say that. I know this is the same mic Aaron has, like, and Aaron has had his Yeti for years, um, and my Yeti is holding up really well. So I have the a Zoom, um, and an XLR setup and stuff like that, which is better audio, but it's not as convenient with this. So gotta head back to work. Take care. Have a great weekend. You too, John. So, and it's my birthday on Sunday. It's a Sentinel birthday, so the odometer is turning over to a different number here. The the first number is turning over. So yeah, and so that blue plate behind you is all you need. So that elephant armpit, that is so it's a record that my daughter painted, just as a art thing. So just took a 33 and made it blue. So I just think it's a blue moon, or it's a porthole, or whatever whatever you think it is back there. It throws, just a little bit of variety. And yeah, so this is really old, inexpensive paneling, because this was just it's in the basement, right? And so, I've thought too, like, oh, I could drywall like at least that wall, and but I'm like, it's the most sense would be to buy a pop-up green screen just behind me and use OBS, and then just, put something up behind me that would be more professional. So yeah, I think that would work. It's interesting too, because I was sharing, I see a lot of these, these shows where, everyone is doing a prepping show right now, right? They jump into this, and they've been doing it a year, and they do like 3 shows a day, and it's all common sense stuff, or they'll just, read some stuff off the news. They're not product reviewing, not doing anything. Got 50,000 views, and 15,000 views a show, and they're making all of this money, and they're just sitting in front, and in back of them is just like what I have, or it's a curtain, right? And not a green curtain, just like a curtain, or they're like sitting in their garage, or sitting, and it's like, holy smokes, I don't know. So I've been wondering that for a while, what that was. So yeah, it's a blue plate. I've been thinking about, and I shared, I have pictures of my town, right now where I live. The photographer in town, his dad or granddad, like, started to take the pictures in town, back in the 1880s, and he gave me a CD where it had all these digitized images. So, our downtown here, when it was just like, horses, and the armory buildings and stuff like that, which are gone. And we have a canal that goes through town, and connects Fox and Wisconsin River, and that was active, 100 some years ago. So there's a couple of these really cool vintage pictures that are still, they're high quality, high resolution, and I could have those made up and put them in the back, and I think they would look neat. I don't want anything that people have to read in the back, but I think like images like that. My bank does that, or I think it's kind of a interesting effect. Pharmacy does it here too. And so I'd only have to pay to have those made up, because the images themselves I don't have to pay for, um, because they're his, right? He's like, you could just use these. You don't have to pay like a royalty on these images or anything, and they're mine. Like, and he actually said, like, don't if anybody ever sees these and thinks you took these from the historical society, that's not like, that's, my grandfather took these pictures, and we have the originals, and somehow like someone gave one of these to the historical society, and they're claiming it's theirs, but he's like, it is absolutely not. I'm like, yeah, it's the last thing I need to deal with. But um so yeah, so in summary of today, and then I need to get back to grading papers. I've got class tomorrow, so it is, yeah, that coming up. Um, Friday's face validity check, according to the Fed, 531,000 jobs were added to the payroll in October. Dow Jones is up today significantly. Let's see where it's at right now. It's up 217 points. It was up over 300 earlier in the day. So the Dow is at an all-time high, but Wall Street isn't Main Street. and unemployment has fallen below 5%. But again, Face Validity, um, reading this article from CNS News, and I can post it one more time. 100 million people not in the workforce in America, and they're not looking for jobs. And Face Validity, yeah, that's every place I go, and even I said I do my 7 mile walk, and some of it's kind of rural stuff, and you'll see these signs. It looks like someone's campaigning. It's like, hey, come in here and knock on the door. We're doing in-person interviews anytime, and the jobs are fast food stuff, and where I live is well over $20 now, and plus I get an iPhone and this other stuff, and the positions aren't being filled. Um, so we're seeing more storefronts which are vacant. We lost the glass business, which had been around for 55 years. The dry cleaner's gone. One of the restaurants just closed. So it's when you see these Face Validity things, and yet like, oh, people are back, but these 531 jobs, how many are seasonal? Right, seasonal employment. Um, that's not making it just doesn't match, right? The Wall Street and the whole thing of like this Dow Jones at record high, but yeah, like gas is record high too. It's like, oh my goodness, I fill up today and almost $4 a gallon, and as I said, double A batteries, getting double A batteries, those sticker shock for Halloween, for all the little strobe lights and all the little things that kind of move around, and the stuff like that we set up for Halloween. And I bet versus last year that we paid $15 more in batteries this year, to between double A's and the C's that we use. I think we paid $15 more in just to light the displays. The little the and so it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, there's a commitment there. And one thing I didn't do this year was I usually do these industrial grade glow sticks, and I put them out, and they're pretty cool. Like, of course, it gets dark and they'll stay the entire night. They'll light up, and I didn't do it this year because the price of those just went through the roof. And I'm like, hey, like it's the experience when you come here for Halloween, and the little strobe lights and the skeletons that move and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not going to burn $50 on on glow sticks, which after the night they're all going to be in the garbage. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Things that were I could get for $20 the previous year. It's just nah. I mean, it's just not happening. So All Pro Lemonton wrote, I go off underemployment rate and labor force participation, which are, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, much better numbers, labor force participation. And I mean, even at my bank, like coming in, the first thing on the door at the bank, if you're interested in working here, ask a teller, right? So, which was new. I've never seen my bank advertise on the door. So, um, yeah, just interesting. So let's just go through anything else here. So no, we're pretty good. And yeah, so this is Face Validity Fridays. It's something I might keep doing. It's not going to be this 4-hour marathon show. So I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, 2 hour and a half. I know this one got a little bit longer, but thank you everybody for keeping the chat going. If you can do a thumbs up, I appreciate that. And also, like, if you can post down below, hey, what are you seeing for jobs? Or you're just like, put something in quick, or something like that. Say, hey, there's no cereal, like that's where I'm at, or like all of the ham is gone. I noticed that a couple of weeks ago too. Or something you are seeing like that's suddenly in stock that wasn't in stock. Gas prices, job stuff, saying, hey, I saw this, there's a factory that's offering $2,500 sign-on bonus plus like free food. And So what are you seeing? And yeah, let me know, because I think that's, um, we can get a feel for kind of what's happening in these different areas. All pro put, boomers are retiring as soon as possible at my office. Yeah. So that's right. So we have a lot of people, a lot of institutional knowledge, which is coming out. Like, people just knew how to run things. Not that not necessarily they knew how to run things well, but um, so these systems. Like, if you have somebody who was in accounting, for a number of years, and then they're suddenly retiring, and someone new is coming in, who's showing them the ropes. Unless it's Chad Elkins, who's the all star, but yeah, I mean, so a lot of this knowledge kind of goes. Um, Wook Chewy, hey, welcome back, buddy. As a freelancer, I take all the gigs I can get. Each one counts as a job in the unemployment numbers, so they are all skewed. Oh, that's a good point, right? Because if you're doing, you know, 10 different jobs in gig, those are 10 different jobs that show up now, as in these numbers for 531,000 jobs. Wook Chewy has 1,000 of those that he's doing himself. That's a really good point. So, it's interesting too, because I didn't realize, like, for myself, there were a number of years I would teach not only at the university I was at, but I taught for other universities. Like, I would pick up a couple classes or something like that. And so I'm like, oh, like, there might have been a semester when technically I was, employed by three universities plus my consulting. So, and then if I took my consulting, um, yeah, I mean, so there were probably times when technically I was counted as 4 or 5, um, jobs. So didn't think about that, but you're right. Um, and you said, yeah, yeah. So you took 3 of those jobs, and they have already ended. So I had, just as I'm closing here, so I had, um, a university had approached me and said that, there's a class we would like you to consider teaching. And so that's one thing, right? So I only do so much teaching because I'm retired, and, like, I don't want to teach full time anymore. I've taught, like, 150 plus courses, and courses I do teach, I've taught for quite a while and update those, and they're really in my wheelhouse. And this one was a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, and and so, like, they're going through it with me, and I'm like, oh my god, like, I'd have to learn this and this and this, and I might only teach this one time. And there's some also policy stuff happening at the federal level that's going to be enacted and changes. And I'm like, I just get the sense, I'm like, you're asking me to teach this because, like, no one else will touch this. Like, no one is going to take this on, and because this is a lot of, I don't even know how to approach this. Like, they're sitting down, and I said, I have to decline this. I don't know. For me, it would just be way too much work to take that and put that together. But it's something, the older I get, you recognize those things. Like, when I was younger, I would have just taken anything. And if a university approached me and threw a class out there, if you didn't take it, they give it to someone else. You may not ever get that chance again. So I would just suck up everything and take it and teach it. But yeah, it was kind of, it was funny because it was yesterday. They were going over, and they weren't really answering the questions I was asking either. So so I said, is so what do you want me to do? Like, I kept saying that to them, and they were kind of saying to me, well, like, how, you tell us what this should be. And I'm like, well, but I don't know. Like, what do you want me to do for this? Like, what is your expectation? Or they said, like, can you get us a list of what your goals and objectives would be from teaching this? And I'm like, no, because I haven't taught this before. Like, it's not in my program. It's not the university I work with. And, like, you should have this, right? You should be coming to me and saying, here's the course description and the syllabus, um, and not just say, like, we can't get anybody to teach this. So would you jump in and teach this? And there was kind of like this weird fiscal structure to it too. Like, the way that it was paid was kind of I guess, a red flag. Not that you wouldn't be paid, but it was, so basically, it was through a grant, like, that this course was being developed and stuff like that. I'm like, well, then there's really no future to do that, because after you teach it, if it's grant funded, it's not going to be grant funded the following year. So it'll just be cut. Like it's kind of a one time thing. But um, but yeah, it was one of those things where I knew 3 minutes into the conversation that there's like there's no way I'm teaching this, but yet like I still had to listen for the next 27 minutes as they were. And then when I asked questions of that were very just I thought general, like that they would have had it and they could have answered, they're like, oh, we have to look that up before we can get back to you. And I'm like, I don't know. Not teaching that class then. So I don't have to. I'm not going to. Carl H wrote, "Hey, I'm here. In and out. Be cool." Well, hey, welcome, Carl. When you realize they're cooking the books, you start to understand not to look at the numbers. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Why are you doing all the legwork when they asked you to teach it? Right. Well, yeah, that was the thing because I looked at this and initially, if I would have agreed to it, I would have said, "You have to pay me so much to develop the class." Like, um, you know, and that is typically where the university I've instructed for years. If there's a new class or a substantial change in the class, they'll say, "We need you to do this, and then here is an additional stipend to update the syllabus or do whatever." But in this other case, it was basically like, "Yeah, build everything, and then here's what the class pays," which actually, you know, wasn't any wasn't anything above like the substantial. I don't know. It was a weird thing. Um, and I sat there and I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know what I would do with this. Um, so yeah, it is just crazy. Carl wrote, let's all decide when to pull our retirement monies out mid-December. So Carl, who knows? Like the Dow could be 70,000 by then. Um, to wake up this morning and see the Dow up 300 on a Friday and this all-time record, and then the numbers like look really and then like Zillow coming out and saying like they're dumping all of these homes that they bought while the market was on fire, and they're trying to just sell them to people for these huge profits, and then eventually it's cooling down, and 100 million people out of the workforce. And I mean, I'm like, I know the Dow isn't Wall Street isn't Main Street, but I'm like, this is crazy. Yeah, uh, there'll be corrections, right? And at 36,000, I mean, will there be a correction down to under 30,000? Will it get down to 27, 28? And then if it did, like, what would the Fed do? Are they going to try to throw money back at it? And I don't know. I don't try to figure it out. I think as I had a friend tell me, in finance once, he's like, just take the take the fiat money, and as best you can, take the fiat money and turn it into tangible assets, right? So, if you're buying a generator, if you're paying off your house, or a vehicle, or remodeling, or whatever it might be, tangible assets, through these inflated fiat currencies. You know, some of that stuff they're not going to take away from you, right? They can probably get really, crazy with taxes and some of the other stuff. But if you're, actually buying things, chainsaws and snowblowers and updating your vehicles and stuff like that, um, tools, equipment, things like that, skills, invest in yourself. That's one of the things too, is trying to do more, trying to learn more of the trade type of stuff, either through people I know or through YouTube videos. Or like, seriously, I had a friend and I said, can I just hang out with you when you're like doing a couple of these projects so I can kind of get my own skills improved a little bit? And he was like, yeah. And that was so, yeah, that was cool. Like, I learned to drywall and do all that stuff when I was young. And my, grandfather was building a garage and things like that, and electrical and all of that stuff. But, um, so Carl and, so Carl actually wrote in my book, The Velocity of Information, kind of where we were talking when you were on my podcast. I wrote where, um, yeah, Face Validity, right at the in March and April of 2020, when masks were required to go into big box stores. If Why wasn't there a mandate for these big box stores that you walk in and they immediately hand you a mask? So there's inter-rater reliability. They know what this grade mask is, right? It's an N95 or whatever, but they know. I mean, because some people are wearing a bandana and other rip mask and other things, but and then they maybe give you gloves and they're sanitizing like the cart in front of you and something like that. And when you leave the building, like you would turn in your gloves and your mask. So there would always be this like reliability, right? The standard, at least you could say, like with aerosols coming in and out of this mask. And that would have been a big indicator, right? And we never saw that. But I wrote about that in the book, and that's directly from what I learned from you, Carl. So I appreciate that. And then All Pro Lemonton wrote, I'm all stocks because I'll never be a landlord when they make evictions impossible. Yeah, I'm with you on the landlord. My brother is a landlord and has been a landlord for 35 years, maybe. And he was talking to me when the eviction stuff started last year. The moratorium. And he's like, there's a few units, right? Like if people aren't paying their rent, like I can still keep things going. But if I get an entire building where everyone's like, I'm not paying the rent, then what do I do? And so yeah, it was he was really crunching the numbers and just seeing what was going to happen. And I and right now, like all these evictions are hitting, like they're starting to happen. But again, where I live, it's cold weather climate. So, the county is only going to, they're only going to enforce this to certain degrees. And the big areas where I'm at, the big metros, Madison, Dane County, Milwaukee County, they won't enforce that. So, um, and so you're going to see, yeah, oh God. And not only that, right? Like as a landlord, just people, when I the last place I rented before I got married, like I remember when I moved out, like I spent 2 days like cleaning and vacuuming, and like the place looked better than when I moved in. Like it was, um, and now it's just people, they just trash things, right? I mean, they don't take care of things, and good luck with trying to recover the money, or if people are behind in rent. And um, it's and people get behind in rent. Like I understand all of that happens, and in the bigger picture though, like if you're behind for rent, but then you're pulling up in your new Ford F-250 that you just got a month ago, and you also have your brand new smart device, um, and you're not making your rent payment, and it's like, hey, what gives here? Like what's going on? Um, so yeah, and as far as stocks, like eh, I'm not going to make this a stock show and give out financial advice, but I've always been interested in an advocate and an owner of dividend stocks, and I that's just been my belief in dividend, stocks, and where I reinvest dividends. And for years, like I've had stocks that they, whenever there's a dividend paid, it just gets reinvested in additional shares, and so it's cost averaging. So the benefit is if the market does go down like it did, last in 2020, the dividends were being reinvested at those lower rates. So there's a little bit of an offset there, but um, so that's just, but that's those diamond hands. Like when I came in to that philosophy and had kind of bought some of those dividend stocks, I was like, I won't sell these. I don't know if I'll ever sell them, but I was planning. The earliest I probably would sell them in my 60s. So I've got quite a ways yet to hold those. But it takes a certain type of mindset to do that. But yeah, I mean, That was pretty good, if you're getting between 3 and 5% on a dividend, but now now with, like, inflation is 3 to 5% a quarter, the dividend stocks, only get you so far down the road. Um, and then, Carl wrote, "Build this class, we get paid by the grant." Yeah, everybody you get blamed, pass, yeah. It was just one of those things I'm like, I have no idea how I would do this, plus I wouldn't enjoy it, and, like, I'm not gonna if I can't enjoy a class. Like the classes I instruct now, the legal issue courses, like it's my wheelhouse and I enjoy those. I just don't want to come in as a one. I just don't want to be inserted to fulfill this one class and then be out of there. That would be really clunky. Um, Carl H. I'm always worried that they will attempt to secure the monies like they did in Greece. Yeah, I know. Um, and remember, what was it, 1984? Social Security was taxed, right? Like, so your tax going in with Social Security and your tax going out. So, what's going to so I mean, you can only monitor so many of those things, and I one of the things I've done is diversify into different financial institutions. Not that there's a big amount of money out there, but at least if something gets closed down, like that's been happening a lot. Like I read out in Montana, like banks, they waived the 48-hour notice that to close a bank. Then you just do it emergency closing now. And they're saying this is COVID related. People can't come in and staff it. But at the same time, I'm not sure if part of that is also insolvency in the bank. And then because I mean I've read stories then where people show up at the bank and if it's the federal FDIC person is there, or if it's a credit union, they're there and they validate their account and they cut them a check. But yeah, I mean I want to make sure I don't that if there's a situation where that happens, I'm like, whoa, like that's my bank and that's where my debit card is, and like I can't get to it and all of that stuff. I would really be hesitant on putting anything in a safety deposit box after I don't know, I've watched the videos on Leto's law and just the fact that those can be seized, and they could say, well, you've got this much value of whatever is in this, whether it's cash or jewelry or silver or gold or whatever, and like and the feds can seize it, and then you have to petition to get it back because they can say, well, we believe this wasn't acquired in a up and up means. I mean, we've all kind of heard those stories, but I wouldn't put anything in a safety deposit box. Like there's just this is I need to be separated from that, and there's nothing in my house that if anybody was to ransack my house that they're going to walk out of here with any one particular thing of high value. There's no treasure in here. So, but yeah, I wouldn't do that. Absolutely not. Hey, it's Phil Henry in the house, and welcome, Phil, from Germany. All European except Swiss accounts can be seized. People forget that diversify is the only solution. Yeah. Um, so yeah, and more with the economy, I think it's good to have in some different places, and also credit. In School of Air, and not School of Air, Velocity of Information, I wrote about that with credit cards. And when I started to see, I wrote about it, like with my member check network, we were starting to see banks. I'd have to go back to that chapter. I think we were starting to see banks, more bank holidays, like banks not open on certain days, or banks like cutting your credit. Like you just would get notified, hey, like your credit is now half of what it was. And we're doing this to everybody, by the way, but we saw that happen in the network, and it happened to a few of us. So the message there was get out and get more access to credit, because if there's this big, movement to limit people's access to credit, and you need credit to to live, especially, or if the banks are closed and the your credit card is still going or whatever. But um, get some more lines of credit, like get approved, and not that you're maxing out things, but that you have access. Another thing I learned too is if so, let's say you have 5 credit cards that, you're rotating across these credit cards, so they can't come back. So it's less likely they'll come back and say, "Hey, you haven't used this one for 60 days. We're going to shut it down." So that's something I've been doing too, is making sure that as I make purchases, I'm like using different cards for things. But I definitely I increased my access to credit last fall, because across my network, people are saying this is getting a little. And that, remember, the coin shortage was happening, and some of the banks too are saying you can only withdraw like $200, this day, like that was up, or and yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to be in that situation if things start to get a little bit hairy. Um, so um, Carl wrote, watching people just walk into stores and walk away with things, and the guard can't top them. Yeah, and that's right. I mean, that's one of the reasons Walgreens closed so many stores in California, right? Like people they just said it doesn't make sense to do this anymore, and they wouldn't be prosecuted either. And I saw on the news, like Philadelphia is now the latest city saying, if you run a red light and don't put your blinker on and stuff like that, we won't pull you over. So I'm kind of thinking too, like as a vehicle, like, I don't want to invest a whole lot in a vehicle these days when you don't, people can sideswipe you, and it's just this crazy stuff. I want a durable, safe vehicle, but why in the world would you, unless you have something very carefully, you're just using it certain times as like a show vehicle, it'd be crazy to put a lot of money into it, because drivers just don't, they're not held to the same standards as just like when any of us grew up and got our license. Sastro, banks report every account with $600 or more. I believe, yeah, that was in the bill. And I kind of believe that happens no matter what. Like, they just don't tell you, but um, I just think all of that is tracked and reported. I would just be surprised if it wasn't. And yeah, those are the type of things, like they irritate me. They make me really pretty upset, because I'm like, why are you doing this? And well, and then we're trying to make the billionaires pay their fair share. And I'm like, well, really, like, if you're a billionaire, right, you're probably drawing $1 salary a year, and everything else is leased for you. And then you have all of your holdings spread out. Like what, like, if it's an airline, like every plane is its own company. And these LLCs and how this stuff works. And I'm like, it's, I get it, but like, to say you're going to do this stuff is just really saying you're socking it to well, I mean, it's because of crypto, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious if you sit back and say, well, they're just trying to watch crypto, come in and out. Because I think the Fed's terrified, right, with crypto, and at some point they have to have that showdown and that reconcile, and I think they know they're on the losing end of that. Um, so Phil put, banks are closing left and right here. Everything is moving to app based. Same here. A couple of the branches have closed, and I've been reading more. Like, one of my banks is down to like 2 branches. That's it. A main branch and this ancillary branch. I went to the ancillary branch, and they had 2 people working that day. So you walk by and there's all these empty offices, and there's like nothing in them. I mean, they're just completely empty. So it's not like that's somebody's office, but they're not here today. There's nobody there. And it's just strange. And so I'm like, okay, so yeah, it's going app based, and also like elderly people, like how, not to say elderly people aren't tech based, but I mean, you're separating out your customer service, like, to people who do that, or people who aren't as tech savvy. And I don't personally want to have an app and be taking pictures of my checks and depositing that way. And I guess I know it's been around in some place, but I mean, I want to be able to take it and physically, do that. Um, so yeah, papers, please. Where is your card, citizen? So Carl, that was something too back in um, April of 2020. One of the member check network people, they were issued their papers by their employer, and they were pulled over a few times. And none of us, nobody else was in the group. We're in different states and things like that. But we put it on our radar. Like if that would have happened in a couple other states, like I would have just expected, okay, so you know anticipate that your travel is going to be restricted and you're going to probably need rationale to go somewhere if it's 2 hours away. If you're getting parts for something or whatever, like you're going to have to email them at a time and at least get an email back of proof of like why you have to visit. And because remember, like it was in Michigan, like Governor Whitmer said you can't go to like your summer home and stuff like that. And I mean, these things were getting pretty draconian at one point. And I'm not sure like we're out of that. It's kind of this thing like it's like Halley's Comet. It might be out there, like it's away from us, but it might be like just returning at some point here. The coin shortage. Wait, you have all the coins. Where's the shortage? It's Max Face. And I have a picture in the new book where the gas station had a sign up by the register and it said, "We will buy your quarters, not please turn in your change," but they would give you so I don't know what the exchange rate was, but it was I don't know if it was like 4 quarters and they gave you like 2 singles or something like that, but or they were giving away like food and things like that at the gas station, like so actually I have the picture, and so there you are trying to buy money from people, right? Which is just crazy. And I said, "Are you okay if I take this picture, just of the sign? Like, I won't." And they're like, "Sure, like you can do that." And then I'm like, "What's the deal?" Like, and they're like, "I don't know. The bank told us they can't get quarters for us." I'm like, that seems weird. It just, um, it just seems weird, right? And like, and think of all the quarters just a few years ago, like every vending machine, was quarters and all of that stuff. And, it's not like we have a society that's used quarters. Like, where did all these quarters go? And how can you not like just I mean, most people are probably using credit anyway. Like so a face validity thing, it's just really weird. So, some of the questions on our is the reason you're going with you're putting this up, right, is to get people to try to use digital more to just again so you can close more of these bank branches, you know that it's just digital. It's easier to track digital transactions than it is to track cash. So was it a way to condition people, hey, you're not going to be using cash as much? And I think there's a big argument to be made, for that. But in the moment, face validity, when you see that, yeah, it was pretty alarming to see that you had this almost insolvency happening in a currency market when the demand on currency didn't seem like it warranted that, right? Like, um, so Carl wrote, "Your crypto's useless when you can't charge your phone or check your balance or transfer it." Yeah, and I separate it from internet access, right? Like I wrote about it in Velocity of Information. 29 countries in 2020 um, shut down the internet so people couldn't access the internet. And granted, yes, if you had your keys for your crypto, you could go other places and things, but like, those types of things, or who knows, like there could be a hack. I mean, if somebody went in or, um, and I'm not seeing this as a for or against crypto, because it'd be the same thing with fiat currency, any currency, right? But yeah, these things can be pretty. They could be manipulated by rogue government actions. Sast wrote, Carly proposed the bill. It will help them catch billionaire tax cheats. People believe their crap. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and this whole thing, right, of when they were kind of saying, "Oh, we'll tax the unrealized gains," and it didn't take long to say, well, like farmers, right, who have generational farms, And, the farm initially was in 1858 when they bought it, it was a total of $8,000. And now the property is worth, 15 million if you took it and all of the stuff over the generations and things, and you're going to tax them on unrealized gains. That's not only stupid, right? But it's it's just horrific to think like people would float ideas like that out there. They're just such idiots, to do that. Um, yeah. Um, Carl wrote, now that OSHA general duty clause has been thrown out, I'm pretty much done. Phil put, we have a rise of more and more collectible coins, like very cheap metals with something from a show on it, The Mandalorian. That's a psychological thing crowding in, and other things like Doc said. Yeah, that's a good point, Phil. And it's actually something I would have put in the book if I would have thought about it. Um, but yeah, the printing of coins that don't have necessarily a value, but make you feel like it has value. They did that in World War One in Austria. They printed up all these like commemorative war coins, and but the coins had no value as far as like cashing in. Like they weren't silver or gold or whatever. It was just very cheap metal. But it was done to make people feel that they had things and that they were contributing also to the war effort. So they were, but it got to a point, and it was kind of like Hemingway wrote also when he was trying to take all of his medals and things like that and pawn them and sell them, and he thought he would get all his money. And the pawn store was like, they're not worth anything. And that's kind of what this is. I mean, people surround themselves in the psychological. So Caro to Sast, I have some lovely land in the Everglades ready for construction. Phil, get a shot. Here's a donut. And so there's a section in Philosophy of Information where I talked about things like New Mexico did the Vax to the Max sweepstakes. So you could win money. You could get fishing license, all these other stuff, and you could get a donut, right? And now in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, they had where if you got vaccinated, you could have crime expunged from your record. So I didn't have that in the book. The book was already written at that point, and I think I got the point across. And what is it is it in Holland, where now it's if you are vaccinated, you get a token to the red light district. This is true. Like this is in the last week. Like it is. That is the new incentive. So I'm like, holy smokes. But yeah, and all of these incentive programs are just yeah. I again as a face validity, they really were weird to see. Why you're giving away free marijuana brownies and stuff like that, and I don't know. So Sast wrote, if any of you are spiritual or religious, submit a religious exemption under Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And Carl, you can't track a quarter in a laundromat, but your card on the same machine, whereas how much data just went out the door. Yeah, right. So just all your purchases and what was it? I was looking at one of the state. Oh, it was Washington State. Their DMV came out and they said something like, "We're not going to be selling as much of your information." So I looked at like the press release, and then I dug into like what they sold, and it was just crazy. Like the money they were making and all the stuff they were just turning over every time you just got a driver's license. Like that should have to be opt in to have that, and you should get a cut. Like say, you know. If you're going to do this, then yeah, I should get some cut off of this. But yeah, the way everybody's data is just sold is just, and they do this to kids too, in schools, the selling of data, unless you aggressively opt out of that stuff is just through the roof. Sastro, there are not requests you invoke your right. They're supposed to accommodate you, federal law. Yeah. And Sast, one of the things I've noticed, again, as I teach these legal classes, is people don't the laws almost don't apply anymore. And I've been teaching these classes like 20 years. And I found myself more than once this year saying, I know what I'm telling you is legally accurate. And I know like 3 years ago, like this was absolutely followed, like freedom of information request. If someone makes a freedom of information request, you have this much time to respond and all this. And I said, now places aren't doing it. Schools aren't doing it. Public institutions aren't doing it. And there's no recourse. So, and I had some articles from my state where this was happening, and or else they'll just say, "Oh, freedom of information request. You want to know how many staff were out called in sick, or something like that at a public place. Like they counted that day they weren't there as sick. You don't have to say like why they were sick or whatever. You don't have to identify a person. They'll say, yeah, $20,000 it'll cost. They'll throw some number out, which is prohibitive, and no one challenges them. Or if they do get challenged, nothing happens at a county court level. And then there's there's like one law firm in my state where they have a couple attorneys and they deal with this stuff, and they're overwhelmed, and they charge fees too to to try to get these things moved. But freedom of information is out the window. Like at a local and state level, maybe at a federal, I can't talk to that, but if you're just trying to work with a school district and a school board free of information, it's done. Forget it. Um, and so Phil wrote, the company doing that today is the same German company. They print Star Wars and other worthless currency. Same company, 1913, 14. Okay. Yeah. All these collector novelty type things that people surround themselves with that just get overproduced, and then they don't have any intrinsic value like in the material. And then when you try to sell them as commemorative, it's flooded, right? Nobody wants this. We have a World War II museum in my town. And yeah, I was talking to the guy a couple of years ago, and he said, when people die, like, grandpa dies, right? Um, and the family brings in his uniform and his medals and stuff, and they want to donate. He's like, he'll go through it, and there might be something he would accept, but he's like, I already have so many uniforms. I can only display so many. And, and I can't take these. Like, I don't have room for them. And so then people have a hard time. They're like, well, what do I do with these things? Because they believe, like, when they bring this in, the person will be like, oh, like, whoa, haven't seen this, or this is great, or we'll put this on display. And it's like, yeah, no, you're the third person to come in this week with a box that has a similar stuff in it. And not to be disrespectful or anything, but um, yeah. So um, Carl wrote to SAST, too many supposed to, they just threw out the general duty clause. I need to find another line of work. Oh no, Carl. Um, New Jersey, huge ad, two old people on a couch. Hands up, don't hesitate to vaccinate. Yeah, the messaging is really noticeable. And in Wisconsin, the messaging for kids is noticeable. So they have the TV ads, and it's like a precocious 8-year-old boy or something, and he's going around, hey, like, vaccinate and stuff like that. And the part that I don't like about that is, the kid's obviously, he's no idea, he's not informed, right? He doesn't know what he's talking about. And they've coached him, he's acting. So it's, but the other kids, they see it in the signs and the things like that. And in, what is it, in New York City, they give kids $100 now. So you can be 8 years old and have $100. So but Carl, if you have to give me something to do, something I don't want to do, I should ask questions. Yeah. Cash and mask are the trick to being anonymous. All pro lemon wrote, yep. Carl, to all pro Lemonton, good point. Can't read my face with AI. You can't track my purchase, except the self checkout has a camera too. Wear sunglasses. So, where you can lay the law aside, then you don't have any laws anymore. And So yeah, I don't, and that's the thing, as we think about, I prepping, I was talking with Joe Dolio, and or I might have been like chatting with Joe Dolio. I don't think this was an in-person talk, but he was making the point that, you know, everything you purchase, right? Like if you're purchasing in a larger number of canned goods and stuff like that, like and there was a or there was a declaration of a defense act, um, you know, uh, the government could come to your house and take that, right? They could say you're hoarding supplies that need to be there for the general good. It's kind of like out there and stuff, but it's like, um, yeah, if I was actively, yeah, my pantry is modest, right? I mean, but if like I was a significant prepper, I wouldn't make videos where I had all of my goods and stuff like that. Even if like people didn't necessarily know the location, I wouldn't do that. I think that's information you don't want to give out there. Um, Sast wrote, if you are spiritual or religious, here are some resources. Do with it, do you will or do what you want with it. Thanks, Sast. Carl, do you see the docs and nurses who applied for this and got told, we will look at it. Now you are on unpaid leave. I think I've heard some of that. Yeah. Um, I know. So a community that I went in that has a large hospital, as I was driving through it a month ago, the hospital workers were outside for several blocks, and protesting the root beer float, and the signage, and just and there were a lot of people. Nothing in the newspapers, and this was a significant hospital in my state. Nothing, and I afterwards I was doing a search and I put in the name, and I was telling people too. I said this was really something. Like it was several blocks where people were lined up, and I would put it at an estimate of 1,000 people, and signage, and the fact, this billboards and other signage was up in this area, and like none of it hit the media. So I'm like, oh, like that was kind of interesting. I didn't expect to see that, right? I guess I would have expected it had I, but that's something where purposely like the media is choosing not to cover it, and the TV station was 2 blocks away. The It was right in back of where they were protesting. So they covered that area, literally was right there, and, nothing on their website, nothing like, "Oh god." So, listening while driving to work. Well, thanks, Andrew. And, they literally broke the law. Too many said yes. They, laid it aside for propaganda. If you get that unpaid leave, immediately collect unemployment. No need to quit to apply. Unemployment is for when your pay stops. So thanks, Sast. Um, so everybody, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do. And if you know people, right, and you're like, hey, sub over to Doc's channel. I'm producing more content. I'm having more guests on. I had Lisa Linney, an attorney, on my show Monday night, and that's a great show. That one's out there, and that was what happens when parents sue school districts over COVID restrictions. So she was breaking down, here's an injunction, here's declaratory relief, here's probably what the school's doing, what's the best opportunity for the parent to win, like what would be their game plan, what's the best opportunity for a school to win. So like it was a really good show. And so especially like if you got kids going to school, um, or your relatives or family members have kids in school, and policies and stuff, like that's a good show to listen to, because like no one is talking about that. No state agency is talking about it. The news isn't going to talk about it, of what actually happens. So in my state, some of these suits have been filed. So we were breaking down what was inside of some of those. And but again, you're not going to hear this anywhere else. You're not going to know where these arguments kind of fall. Um, and so, yeah, that was really good. So, um, please, yeah, do that. Subscribe. Yeah, any thumbs up, like, and if you can post down below a comment like, "Hey, I'm seeing this in my area." It helps the algorithm, right? I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, it helps the algorithm. I was listening to somebody on YouTube who I kind of like, and he was actually in one of his shows. He said, "Hey, like, he's a full time YouTuber," and he said, "Hey, can you just like keep, if you're listening to my show, people, can you just keep it on in the background, even if you're not watching it and stuff, because it helps the numbers?" And I'm like, "Well, that's unethical. Like, don't do that. Like, I don't want you to do anything unethical." Like, for example, if you leave a review for my book, like, do that only if you've read the book, right? um, but um, but yeah, please, subscribe, let people know. um, it's working. The numbers are coming up, and I'm trying to hit that 1,000 before the book comes out in April, and the book tour and stuff like that. And so it's pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is, I'm getting in this routine now of 2 shows a week. Um, and there are 112 in the playlist I posted above. Awesome. Thanks, Sast. So there are 157 shows in the Safety Doc podcast playlist, including many interviews. Larry Lawton, Morgan Rogue, and uh, Robert Travis. So, but yeah, thanks for that. So I'm going to do a show which will go in the playlist, the Safety Doc podcast playlist. I'm going to do more interviews too, and then I will do a show. I think it's going to be the Fridays, and it'll probably be earlier in the morning on Fridays, and it will be Face Validity Friday. And that's, again, this one's gone long. It's the first one here, but I'm going to just talk about, like, what's the news telling us and the government, and then also, like, what are we just seeing, like, actually, like, as I'm going out and I'm driving around this week, what did I see, or what am I seeing in my bill for whatever, or what's the quote that I'm getting to have this part replaced on my car, or how much did it cost to go out to eat this week if we went out or something. So Sast wrote, "I'm a Safety Doc junkie." So, well, hey, thank you, buddy. It is. So I release everything that's in the channel. The 157 episodes is always out on Podbean, well, in iTunes too. But I mean, and that's leveled audio. So if you're just listening, like you're driving, or you have it on in the background and you're working and doing something, or that the YouTube stuff, isn't going to be level. It'd probably be pretty good, but the audio is always leveled, and I don't load that up anymore with the commercials, like the little for the book and stuff like that. And I don't do like the big intro, so it's just like quickly into it, leveled, and then out. So, so there's almost 300 hours of content now. And I mean, there's some cool stuff. I go back and I interviewed a person who had a search and rescue dog. So she was like going through the whole process of, if I get the call, like, to go out, here's what it takes to, get home, prep the dog. Once you get there, how long the dog is good before they kind of fatigue. They only can track the scent for so long, and then you have to kind of reset the dog and that whole process. And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. I had a drone guy who like had a drone business, Preston Rice still does. And then like he would go up and inspect like bridges. He'd be contracted in power lines and all of that stuff. And houses, like realtors were hiring him. And then he talked about like the insurance you had to have on drones and all the wacky rules with drones too. You couldn't fly in a federal park or something like that, or I don't know, some of that changed, but there was some real interesting stuff. And the insurance, like for every minute you were flying it, like it was the way that the insurance was billed. But that was some pretty cool stuff. And then we're talking like the search and rescue part of drones. So Sast wrote, "I'm getting kicked out 12/8, December 8 without the jab. So in the same boat as everybody else." So I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. Carl wrote to Sast, "Too many people are. I sense will be an exodus to other states, and work will boom there incredibly. Education, amazing healthcare, helpful people in other states will fall." So, yeah, I mean, like, how many people will, if they can remote work or just go to another state to work, like a South Dakota, or something like that. I mean, it's so new. Like, in my years, I've never experienced anything, like this. So what is that going to mean? And then are you going to get these weird things where, remember, like a year or two ago, like California wouldn't do business with Texas because of some political rife. Something was, so they're like, we won't order product from Texas for any, public works that we're doing and stuff like that. And so are you going to start to have some of these state things going on where, yeah, we won't order from Florida or we won't order from South Dakota? You know, and if so, then that really strains. You start to balkanize. That really strains the country. But what we saw Virginia vote for a Republican governor, and didn't Seattle do like a district attorney now who is Republican? So some things like I wouldn't have expected. Um, so um, Phil Henry wrote, "As soon as we can send super chats, we will shower you with money." Well, I'll tell you what. If I were to receive super chats, I would I would use. I know YouTube keeps right 30% or whatever, but I would use the super chats to buy copies of my book, to donate to libraries, and like smaller libraries that, across the country. And that's what I would do. Is I would say, especially where there might have been Sentinel school safety events, or maybe close by. Or actually, I shouldn't say that, because it's probably, I'm not donating school areas like velocity of information, but I would look and try to get my book into more states, right, and into more library systems and smaller library systems that, um, and that would be my thing. So if you were super chatting, it would be to help me get the velocity of information out there. Not tax deductible on your part, or I don't think my part on that regard, although I suppose it could be. I don't know. But I am coming in with this approach, it's going to be older and things like that. And I think this work is really important, and it's important for people to be aware of it and have access to it. Um, you know, and the book will also be out in audio, and the audio version, which comes a little bit later, that's not the same timing, but I worked to make sure that was accessible in all libraries at the lowest rate possible for libraries, because the way audio books through the formal published book, and you can have a tier where they pay like this, if somebody downloads the audiobook, it's the same as like a paperback or something, so they might get hit up with a $14 charge. And a library, once your book is downloaded 3 or 4 times, they're going to be like, we can't do this anymore, like we don't have the budget. But there is a way then to have it, so that it's a much lower check-in check-out type thing. And so I put all of that together when we were doing the contract for the book. By the way, like, the book, the books don't make much money. I mean, School of Airs makes a little money, but like velocity of information, there's a lot of sunken costs out of my pocket in that, because I paid for professional transcriptionists to transcribe some interviews, and some of that I did myself, but some of it I had to do because people who were like celebrities, I had to make sure everything was quoted, and then it's just a process you have to go through. You give a copy to them, and then there's this record that's kept, because if they're misquoted, right? If I didn't listen correctly, and I'm not a professional transcriptionist, right? So then it could be something that could devastate their career, or it could be cancel culture. Who knows? There's all these layers that kind of go through. So I put a lot of money into those types of things, and then I would hire an editor, in addition to the publishing house. But I hired an editor to specifically go over some of the things in the book and check for whether my content was aligned, or to help me with some transitions and some chapters. I mean, I had these are So when everything kind of works out through the publishing house with that, there's it's not like there's no windfall coming out of that. And I knew that coming in, but again, to do that helps because I want that to be out there. I want everybody here to have the the access to that book in a very affordable means, and I want it's helps me as a university professor, right, to have something that's published. So there's some ancillary benefits that necessarily aren't cash related on that, um, but yeah, it was very important. I just kept saying, I mean, the publisher has to make their cut, off of this and things like that. But I said, for me, I mean, I want this book to be very affordable, and that's too, like, as we put together this plan to get out there and market it together, I'm willing to go out there and do some traveling, and so that's pretty cool. I mean, it's an awesome book. Like, um, I can't say enough positive about it, and I'm just not trying to just flood myself with this great stuff. But it's a book I enjoy reading. Like, I sit down and will read it cover to cover several nights, and I'll take a little notes, like what sticks out, and just I just think it, and the 10 interviews. So, like, it's going to be so engaging as you go through it. Like, it won't be boring at all. And if you like Malcolm Gladwell, and like Nassim Taleb, who wrote The Black Swan, I think the book is similar in style to those two, but they don't cover the same stuff that I cover in the book, and I do more interviews than either of them. But we're in the same. I think it's in good company. Like, I would say, like, it's kind of in that style of writing. So, and like like who writes like two nonfiction books and kind of does another one? Like, it's a commitment. And I said, and the gift is when Carl and Sast and Phil, when you guys are able to read it and write it, to read it and give me feedback on it. That's really the gift to me, is to know that it's brought value to you. So that's just what it's all about, putting that book together. So I'm excited because, like, it's just starting to build, like, up to the release of the book, and this, coming out in the audio version, having paperback. School of Airs didn't have paperback, so paperback makes it more affordable for people to get the word out there. Um, and I said, people reading the book, that's one thing. If once you read the book, I think you see things differently. There's this constellation of books, like if you have that, and Joe Dolio's Tactical Wisdom, Clay Martin's Concrete Jungle, you see things, and you see things before other people do, and you can act before other people do, and get yourself and your family out ahead of the curve. And that's where you got to be, like, and it's so well calibrated to that. And all these modern day examples too, like even the Gatlinburg fires, Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge, like 5 years ago, and just how people missed out on the big indicators that was going to be catastrophic. And even the people that live there, the indicators that they kind of dismissed. So let's put, so Clary's not the only one getting money spammed. Yeah. Aaron, every time he fires it up, and yeah, the money rains, especially when he has chat on there. But I'll tell you what, Aaron is an extremely hardworking guy, and there is no downtime for him. Sometimes I actually worry that he's pushing himself a little bit, but too much. But he's out there, he's hiking, he's doing good things. He's stuff is balanced for him. I was watching one of Larry Lawton's live streams, and I think it was several $1,000s came in just on one live stream. I mean, it was 1.3 million viewers. So it's like, holy smokes. But so Sast wrote, I work 100% from home since April 2018. They don't care. I want to make them care. Yeah. Got to go meet someone. Take care. Good luck, everyone. Sast. All right. Take care, Sast. Yeah. So it'll be balkanization, Carl. Yeah. It's getting more that way. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Florida definitely seems like they would be one of the states that would go first, and South Dakota. And then where is it after that? I mean, I don't know. Texas, I have a weird read on Texas. Sometimes I think Texas just plays along with things, like, a couple of my friends in Texas, like they said, property taxes are going really high, and you think things would be kind of reined in here, but it's becoming a little more like a second California. But but certainly, South Dakota and in Florida, I think would be kind of leading the way. And then, like I said, this whole face validity thing too. Are we going to start seeing where if you are you'll have a state, you'll be like California and just say, we're not buying any product from Texas. So, hey, like we need this, these pipe fittings or whatever for this, our natural gas grid, PG&E and whatever, but they're made in Texas. Well, too bad. I mean, just stupid stuff like that. But I mean, who knows? So, Carl, I'm excited to read it and get a signed copy. You bet. And I am. That's another thing. And for probably most of you, if not all of you, I am buying my own book, right? So I get copies that are given to me, but not like hundreds of copies. And then I'm buying a large amount of books to sign, hard copies that I'll sign and I'll send out. So I'll be contacting, many of you and saying like, what's your address? Like, how can I send this out to you? And that's my gift to you. And again, it's up to you if you want to leave a review or not, or, share it or things like that. But it's just, that's my gift to you, is that book. So Carl, hand dogs gotta go out. My new employer sent me 8 extra 22-inch monitors, Bull Rush. Called my recruiter and she said they won't take them back. That is it's crazy. I have 3 27-inch monitors, but yeah, this man is too good for toxic YouTube, Phil Henry. So Bull Rush. I had something interesting. I ordered something from a store. I'm not going to name the store, or it was clothing, but so it got lost. It didn't arrive, and then the tracking was gone. Like you'd go and check tracking, it said tracking not available. So I got all the store, and I'm like, "What's the deal? Like, at what point do you send me some replacement on this or refund me?" And they just said, "We'll refund you like right now." Like they're like, "We just brought it up on our end. We don't know where the hell it is." So I'm like, "Okay, packages." And I said, "Then, well, what happened if it arrives?" Because I had that happen on something else. I said, "What do you want me to do if it arrives?" And they said, "Just keep it." Like, and I said, "Well, do you want me to? If it arrives, like, should I contact you and then you would bill me for this?" And they're like, "No, like, just if it arrives, it's yours." So, and it did. Like a week later, it arrived, and I was like, "Well," it felt weird because I'm like, "I shouldn't be getting this for free." Like, and then I even said, like, I'll give you more time, like 10 days maybe, and then just we can call it." And then at that time, they're like, "No, right that moment, they're like, we don't know where it is. We can't track it. So here's the money back. And if it arrives, it's yours and enjoy." And so I don't know, like it was just a weird thing for me because it's not the way I operate. So my recruiter told me to donate or sell them. I was like, are you sure?" So yeah, make sure that what the equivalent of a VIN number on a monitor. So 8 extra 22-inch monitors. That's absolutely crazy. As you said, they won't take them back, and I just think, yeah, they sign. They just wash their hands of this stuff. It's so crazy that it's just. But yeah, so stuff arrives, and it's so. All right. So what is on my schedule here for the rest of the day is I am grading papers because I am instructing a class tomorrow in person, and I am grading, and then I have a phone call with the superintendent coming up this afternoon. We're touching base on a few things. Not my superintendent in my district, but going through s- basically through some of the board meeting protocols that districts are starting to consider after the Merrick Garland memo. So that will be that will be interesting. Carl is back. So um, yeah, 22-inch monitors. Wow. So I have 3 monitors, and I wish I had more, but like of the same size. Um, I wish I had 6, to be honest. But this works. So everybody, again, thumbs up if you would. And the reason I'm doing this on YouTube because I used up my StreamYard minutes, and I am going to pay for the regular StreamYard, so that won't be an issue. And then I can have my logo in the back and some of that stuff. But I've been I'm trying some new things here, but I think this Face Validity Friday is going to stick. So it's called a write off. Yeah, Carl. Yeah, right. It's like Kramer in Seinfeld. They just write it off. They just write it off. What is it? Just write off. Well, like they have insurance. Remember how many times we heard that? Oh, they just have insurance. I'm like, well, somebody pays that, like, right? Like it's not magic, but yeah. Um, so yeah, it's strange. Like it can never and that's weird because with things being tracked by barcode, like yeah, an RFID tag, like the stuff was on its way to me and then it just disappeared. And I was like, well, how does it disappear? And also, like, how do you at least not know where it once was? Like the last information. I don't understand the logistics of how it just how it just vanished and how you don't even know like where the last place it was seen. But my honestly, my take on it was they were so it was just standard practice, right? They didn't even want to. I'm like, hey, I can give it more time. Nope, boom, it's refunded. And if it arrives, it's yours. So it obviously happens a lot, or a lot more than it used to. And that's just what they're told is if you can't find it on your end and the customer calls you. I had that happen 3 times this year with different things. One was some outdoor stuff that I ordered, and 2 were different clothing items. And yeah, eventually they all arrived and they all were free because they didn't want to charge me after they arrived. So what the hell? Um, they're criminalizing parents. Just say it. So, oh my goodness. Well, Carl. Um, well, everybody, enjoy. It is my birthday on Sunday. This is how old I will be. So I don't know if I've got. I'm not 5. It's kind of the other way around, depending on how you look at it. I don't know, but on Sunday, yeah, it's my birthday, and the treat part of that is it's going to be like 64, 65 degrees and sunny. And I grew up in the northern part of Wisconsin, so when I was a kid and it was my birthday, it would be um, it would be like 20 degrees and there'd already be snow and ice and stuff like that. So it always sucked. Like having a winter birthday in northern Wisconsin, or I call November winter, it always sucked. I was really I was really disappointed. Like my friends that had summer birthdays, I'm like, you lucky buggers, you. And now I'm like, whoa, like 64 and sunny, like that's gonna be just great. Like we'll be outside that day. I think we've got a couple family ideas of things that we can do to take advantage of some of the kind of like paved hiking trails around here and stuff. But so Bull Rush, thanks for the happy birthday shout out. Yeah, it's one of those. It's this weird thing. Like, and people are like, oh my god, like, does it seem like you're that old? I'm like, I don't know if it does. I don't know. Like, I have a folder in my computer when I turned 40, like where I was working at the time. Like, they did this big thing of like put like the black cutout footprints all the way to your office, and like everything was decorated kind of in black, like the sadness of 40, and the poking fun at that. And I'm like, I wonder what you do for 50. But um so Carl, you're older than me, so between 40 and 50 though, I mean, I'm biking more and longer than I did. Like, so far, you know holding up pretty well, though I had a torn hamstring and stuff like that a couple of like 2, 3 years ago. But yes, and it's interesting because my hair grows fast. Like I get my hair cut on Tuesday, and it is in 4 weeks it goes from the really short to really long, and still everything is up here, and it's still pretty much black hair, little salt and pepper in there, but that's been there for about 10 years. Um, so yeah, I noticed like my car is a four-door sedan, right? And as a it's it's a Buick LaCrosse, 2017 Buick LaCrosse, and so it's like rides super low to the ground. So to get in and out of my LaCrosse is not the smooth maneuver it probably would have been when I was in my 20s. Because I'm like, whoa, like, but uh, but yeah, no, it's good. I'm like I said, I'm thrilled. It's a weekend, so my kids don't have school, so we've got stuff we can plan out here as a family. Plus, like just the good weather. It's just like a win-win. And so yeah. All right, everybody. This is the happy birthday. Do I have? Let me see if I have a happy birthday uh, graphic. I might. Oh, wait a second. Here I got party hat. So get my party hat. Do I have? There's a lot of these that aren't appropriate anymore in this version of Cam 7 that I'm like, holy smokes! Like you couldn't do that today um, in this software program. I'm just kind of pretty surprised by it, but I don't know. I guess here's the birthday. Here's kind of the birthday one of dun, 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 happy birthday. So it's a pretty old program I got going here. So good. All right, everybody. Share, subscribe. We've been at 487 subscribers all of today. So you can find someone and say, hey, subscribe over to Safety Doc Podcast. So we're getting close. We're up like 40 subscribers this month, though. It's really awesome. And Tuesday night I will be on Dark's show, DLD. I wish I had the link to that. I don't, but and he has a big following, right? A big show. I think he had like 100 people on last night. I mean, literally, like cycled in and out of his show. And so we're going to be talking actually kind of about social credit scores and some of that. So that'll be a good one. If you know Dark, Bacon knows Dark. But yeah, have a great party and enjoy the good time. Thanks, Phil. Thanks. And yeah, it's gonna be good. All right, everybody, I'm going to gear up here for grading papers, and by the way, so as a university professor, there's three things. One is I always put a page limit on now. I'm like, it has nothing more than if it's either 2 pages or if it's 4 pages, whatever the assignment is. But I'm like, it can't be longer than this. Like, and the reason is too, like, if you're trying to communicate this out to people, they don't have the, attention span to put up with this. So, like 2 pages for this current paper and 12-point font, because otherwise people will go 2 pages, 8-point font. I'll still get it in there. I'm like, nope, 2 pages and 12-point font. And then the other one is put the name on your paper. And I had 2 I had to go in and put the names on the papers. I'm like, I print these off, right? And then, I go through them and then I hand them back to you in class. And I'm like, you have to put your name on the paper. And I'm just like, and they can be good papers or good content, but I'm just like, how do you and the fact that I even pointed out, I'm like, don't submit anything, I mean, that doesn't have your name on it. So we need the link doc, a link to, so let me do this real quick. Let me see if I can find this, like DLD's show, DLD After Dark, DLD After Dark. I think I've got it. So here's his episode here's his channel. So let me do that. Okay. So I will be on DLD's show Tuesday night. I don't know. He's in a different time zone. Um, you'll just have to watch. I think it's like 8 o'clock, maybe. Um, but yeah, so that will be coming up, and we had a good talk a couple days ago. So he was doing some show prep, and we're going to focus again more in on kind of like social credit score and what is already kind of social credit score-ish, and also the intersection between that and First Amendment and Second Amendment, um, what that might look like. A number of his community, it's also crosses into Second Amendment and then into 3D printing. And I don't know that 3D printing community quite as well, but I do mention 3D printing in the book of saying we're moving from just-in-time manufacturing to 3D printing, and it's probably a good thing. But, for your home 3D printers, will there be a point when new 3D printers will automatically just be connected to the internet? And it'll be a subscription service, and, maybe you can take it offline, but maybe it'll be, like John Deere, like with tractors, right? Like with the whole right to repair thing. So what does that mean? And also, like, you probably want to preserve your current 3D printing and your current systems, because what if the new ones are sold, and then of course their subscription and their LinkedIn, and to so everything that you print there's a record of, right? And then also if you print something and it's too close to something that's has a trademark, copyright, or whatever like that, that there could be some intellectual. If you just print it for yourself, it's one thing, but I mean, if you're printing it and selling it and stuff like that. Um, but I've talked to more people who have just said, like on the 3D printing thing, like if they have their stuff now, they're like, they're keeping it and they're going to maintain it because they're becoming nervous of, will the future stuff be linked, just part of the internet as we know it, right? And if that's the case, it's like, yeah, here's your 3D printer. Like you can print these things off at home, or these parts for your you know, car, or, whatever it is, but it's a subscription service. And if you start printing off stuff that we don't want you printing off, we'll be tracking it. And so I don't know. It's an interesting time. All right, everybody, take care. And thank you so much for coming. This is much more than what I expected today. I was just going to come in here and kind of pop into this Face Validity Friday, but I'll organize this a little bit more. I think this has a good feel to it. Probably be earlier in the morning too. And I still have a coffee here, which I didn't drink this one. This was a second one from this morning. So it's cold, but that's okay. Like I am fine with cold coffee. But yeah, this is going to be down the hatch here in a minute. So to get to the Safety Doc podcast, let me well, should have all of this stuff. I should have this much more smooth than what I do here. So just bear with me. I almost have it here. Customize basic. Here we go. Copy. Okay. So here's my channel, and then also done. On Twitter at Safety PhD, and then my website, which I've been keeping up, is safetyphd.com. All the pharma ads are gone off of it now, so it looks really nice and clean. So that's good. All right, everybody, take care, and thanks. And all right, let me get all right, and all right, everybody, take care.